said, he told me he was single.
We're live, Kelly.
All right, here we go.
Still no Dr. Kaiser? Okay, yeah, it's 5
I
o'clock.
just texted her.
There she is.
There she is.
She's there.
Pastos, yes.
There she is.
All right. Hi, Kathy.
Okay.
She's got her
5
headphones
o'clock.
on even. She's getting pro with this.
Okay, gonna call it to order. Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is a special meeting of the Board of Education of the Chico Unified School District. We were meeting in closed session beforehand, and we have nothing to report out at this time. If you would, please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right, thank you. We will begin our meeting. Did you want to comment at all about how people can access this or comment?
Sure, Erica, do you want to go ahead and read off the address where they can send comments? Our public is encouraged to participate in our meetings. We have an email address set up where you can email questions. We will then read out those questions and they'll be addressed by either the board or staff that is present.
And that email is public.comment@chicousd.org. And it's also available on our website and the board agenda.
Okay, we will start with our consent calendar. Did any board members wish to pull any items from the consent calendar?
No.
Okay, it appears that there are none. May I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Dr. Kaiser. I have a second by Linda Hovey. We will do a
Roll call.
roll call. Just my brain just- a roll call vote. So Kathy Kaiser.
Yes. Oh,
Eileen
did you hear
Robinson.
me?
Yes, Eileen.
Okay. Aye for Robinson.
Okay. Hovey, aye. Griffin, aye. That passes unanimously. Our next item is a educational services item. It's an informational item. It's our workshop on social emotional learning.
I'll do a short introduction here. As the board's aware, each year you give us a focus goal, and for the past several years, our focus goals have been focused on.
Hey, Kelly,
Yes?
you need to be louder.
Okay,
Not,
I'm sorry. Each year, the board provides us with a goal that is our focus goal. Can you hear me, Kathy?
yes, that's
Okay.
much better.
I'm sorry. Our goals have been focused on curriculum, instruction, support, and assessment for the last several years. And in fact, this year's goal was focused on grade 11, and we will give a report on that at our June board meeting. However, we've had a series of events take place in Butte County. We had the Oroville Dam incident, we had the campfire, and now COVID, which is affecting all of us on a national level. And it really has forced us to rethink how do we best support students. So even though the board didn't quite have it as a focus goal yet, and we know that's a goal that the board has, and it'll be a goal for our upcoming year, and we welcome that. So we wanted to give an introduction as to what we're already doing, and let you know some things that we have planned, and then get input from the board and our community about directions you and they would like to see us go. So with that, I will turn it over to Jay Marchand, Diane Olson, and Tina Keene.
Again, we were just on a national Zoom with EAB, which is the Educational Advisory Board. We've been using them for the past year about getting us, they give us research information along the countries, what districts are you doing well and not doing well, and we were just on there for a social emotional learning Zoom. And basically some of the stuff, we were very happy to say that we were, again, in the top tier of the things that we were we were doing and some of the things that they will be explaining tonight. And again, this is something you guys that talked to us over a year ago. Hey, we're gonna want to make this a goal. We talked about letting us finish our assessment. And again, our team and the team of what we have going in our districts, of our counselors and everybody else that they'll be talking to tonight, have really stepped forward, and we're very pleased at the level we're at. And again, we were able to, they asked us questions and the things that we were doing in that meeting. Tim and Kelly were very gracious in answering some questions live on that about what we were doing with our screener, what we're doing with our counseling and those types of things, our wellness centers and stuff, so it's very good. So at this time, I'll pass it over to Diane.
So, so the social emotional supports and learning that are happening within Chico Unified, it really is a full team approach. Every single one of the directors in their areas have a touch in this, because it does encompass so many things. It is like an umbrella that covers the whole district. And you'll see that one of your handouts is the MTSS, which stands for both tiered systems of support. That's in some of your attachments. And so, that kind of gives a brief, look at what the district's doing. We're gonna go through these first few slides pretty quickly, because this is just the overview. I know what you really wanna get to is what's on the second slide is the presenters.
Eric, are you sharing the screen? Which screen are you sharing?
It's the mouse, just the mouse.
So we have, this is our agenda for tonight. We're gonna do a quick overview. We're gonna present people from our counseling departments, from elementary, junior high to high school, our targeted case managers. We're gonna go over some of the programs we have and our next steps. And the people is the big thing. I mean, you can't do social emotional learnings and supports. Is it working?
The sound is drifting off again.
I'm sorry, we're trying to get the slides to move ahead.
Okay.
Click on see waiting room at the top of the screen. And
Maybe that's got it locked up.
right.
Then in the middle, right there in the middle, there you go. You might just be too far.
And in the middle,
Technology keeps us humble.
Yes, it does.
and then minimize, close those guys out.
Sounds like
Okay,
Now let's see.
now you're there.
Hey.
Right there. Oh, go back a few, you should. Backwards. Backwards one more. Backwards one more. Oh, it's going straight down, so it's skipping some pages. Okay, well so I'm sorry, the slides aren't showing exactly what I have in there. I do have extra copies. But we have presenters. Ashley Treza is an elementary counselor that will be talking about those programs. Kim Carroll is an elementary counseling assistant. Sheila Snyder and Gabby Holmesley are junior high counselors. Jessica Frisk, I think I put it on here, is an at-risk counselor at the senior high level. Fausto Fuentes is a targeted case manager. Jessica Capin is a junior high assistant principal, and Dana Feingold is the special education coordinator. Plus, you'll be hearing from various directors as we go through this. Okay. This sounds like it's the old.
This is the one that's in the board agenda packet.
Diane, did you make any changes today?
I did.
The ones you made today may not have updated to this, to the one you have.
The only ones that missed though were the staff names.
Okay, okay. Well, listen, I do have, for those that are here, I apologize. I'm not used to this new agenda process. So at least for the people here, I do have a
All
couple.
good, we're making it work.
A couple of copies of what was updated.
We know you can talk and fill this in, Diane.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
so, go ahead.
So student resources are plentiful. I wanted to give you a quick overview of what we have for elementary students and secondary students.
They range from all kinds of things, as you can see in elementary, from play groups to opportunity class and everything in between. Secondary is pretty exciting. It's very exciting for us to see the addition of resources there, including Zendens, which are brand new. We secured a grant through BCOE to really address some needs that some kids from the secondary world last year told us that they needed. So both the comprehensive high schools have happily spent money on making these cool Zendens for students to come when they need to.
So describe what that looks like.
The presenters.
Oh, they will,
Talk
okay.
about that, yeah.
Great, great,
This is
great.
just an overview, and then the presenters
Okay,
will talk about
super.
each of these things.
Yeah, you know, when their requests for money come in to spend it, I always get to see what is on the list, and it's really exciting. Wellness teams are a huge addition. They've been growing at the elementary level for a while, but in secondary, they are relatively new. And as someone who's come from the elementary world, it's really exciting to see and hear people in the secondary world talk about wellness teams. So that's very big. Our district-wide programs, again, you see they are plentiful here. You'll notice the first bullet is multi-tiered system of supports. About 3 or 4 years ago, this term came to be, and it really is where all school districts are going to address needs academically and social emotionally. So if you can picture an umbrella of overarching our academic pieces where we have intervention needs, and as well as enrichment, and then our social emotional as well. So all of the following bullets really do fall under multi-tiered system of support, or as we call it, MTSS. Just to give you an idea of how it's growing in California, a couple years ago when there was a big MTSS conference for the first time, the first one, there were about 1,000 participants. A year later, Diane and I and some teachers went, and Dana, and there were 3,000 participants. So in 1 year's time, it's really exploding. And Chico Unified is really happy and proud that we have a lot of these programs. And again, you can see they are plentiful, and we'll be talking about them tonight, that fall under MTSS. Tools are needed to make sure that we are addressing what we need to address. And this has been something we've been working on, again, academically as well, for the past several years, as you well know, but the social emotional piece has been a big addition. We started with at-risk screeners a couple of years ago through Illuminate. We did have our Healthy Kids survey, which goes to our secondary students, that gives us data about their health habits. And then we did, for all schools, have a survey through Chico State that every year teachers, parents, and students took it. We did discontinue it in 2019 as we were finding that the needs have changed with some of the questions and things that they were asking in the survey. So that really got us on a journey this last year in Ed Services to find some new tools that would be beneficial to students, beneficial to us, that would be friendly for people to use, that would give us real-time data so we could address the needs as quickly as we could. So we're really excited to introduce Kelvin this spring as a data tool. It's being piloted at Citrus and Chico Junior, literally just being piloted there. Butte County is also on board with Kelvin for the remainder of these school months because they have seen the impact that it could have. It is a student, parent, staff survey tool, very friendly, very user-friendly, real-time data. And then EduClimber is an early warning system which will help us look at academic needs that come in, as well as some social emotional, but not as much as Kelvin. So the two data tools together working should give us a really great real-time picture of students.
So you'll hear in depth about all these. It's just an overview from the presenters that we have coming up. Okay. And the first set of presenters will be for the elementary special social emotional learning and supports, and that'll be Ashley Treza and Kim Carroll. So Ashley and Kim, if you want to unmute your microphones. And this is your part.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not only that, but I see you.
Kim, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Sure, I can.
Okay.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Kimberly Carroll, and I'm a counseling assistant at both Citrus and Shasta schools. I've been with the district for over 20 years now, and I'm happy to be here tonight to talk about PALS, friendship groups, and toolbox. PALS is a teacher selection of 2 students that sometimes are chosen after our PIP one-on-one service. These students come to the activity room and they interact with games and sharing, crafting, and building. Together they learn to give and take, teamwork, and practice social skills with positive guidance. PALS also helps students with their emotional learning and is a great benefit for students who don't get a lot of social interaction. Friendship groups are another wonderful way to reach students with social and emotional learning. Groups usually consist of 3 to 6 students that meet once a week and work on team building activities and projects, art, expression, and problem solving. This helps students learn great friendship skills. The toolbox curriculum is taught in 2nd and 3rd grades. And these are coping tools that help students manage their behavior when they're having a hard time or angry. These 12 tools are introduced and practiced one at a time and built upon, starting with the breathing tool and ending with the patience and courage tool. Counseling assistants also teach the Komochi curriculum, which Ashley will be talking more about next. And our hope is students continue to be influenced by these groups and curriculums, and it helps them become more resilient. We thank you for your continuing support for our social emotional interventions.
And Ashley?
Oh, yep. All right. So, Komochi's, as Kim mentioned, is a newer curriculum that we started this year. And it actually means feelings in Japanese. So whenever I teach it to the kids, I'm like, you just learned Japanese. So it has these cute little, if you can see by the little octopus, it has these little feelings. And I think it comes with 36 of them. And they are so awesome because instead of just being mad, my students can say, well, I'm really frustrated. And so it just helps build their foundation of feelings. I teach it with our TK. I go in 3 times a week for 15 minutes, because that's enough for me. I'm like, bye. But they really love it. And then it comes with these cute characters, like there's an octopus, there's a butterfly, there's a cat, and they all have different personalities, and it helps the students kind of relate to a character and kind of say like, oh, I'm kind of like Cat. Sometimes I can be a leader, but sometimes I can be bossy, and it's okay if things don't always go my way. So we really like that curriculum for our TK through first. It's developmentally appropriate, and I love teaching it. And then for the counselors, we teach second step in our 4th and 5th grade classes, and we've been teaching second step for a while. It's a research-based program. Our students learn empathy, they learn ways to calm down and name their emotions, and then they learn how to problem solve. And it's taught through music videos, interactive videos, so our students really enjoy it. And then for counseling, we use our screener to get referrals, and we also use parent referrals, teacher referrals, admin referrals, and then we can either meet one-on-one individually with students or in a group, and our groups are usually 3 to 5 students, and we focus on like social skills, maybe peer conflict, maybe a new student group, things like that.
Also included in your board packet was a SEL pacing guide that last year with the elementary counselors, we started working to develop that list of...
Can't hear who's ever speaking.
Sorry, okay, I'll holler. So in your board packet is included an SEL pacing guide that the elementary counselors developed for the counselors and the counseling assistants. And it tells all of the themes of focus that they're working on for the year, who's gonna be the main presenter within that. And then at the end, we came up with some priorities that we felt that council came up with some priorities that was felt that really needed to be part of the program. For example, having the teachers in the classroom still, so that they hear the language and what's being used, and they learn to use some of the same things. So that's in your board packet also. The next group we're gonna go on to is the junior high programs. And I wanna introduce Sheila Snyder and Gabby Holmesley. And they are the junior high counselors at Marsh Junior High.
Hi everybody, can you hear me? This is Sheila Snyder.
Hi,
Yes, Sheila.
Hello, Sheila.
Awesome. So I'm here today with my co-counselor, Gabby Buckham, and we do a lot of things to address the social emotional learning and development for our students. And so Gabby and I have organized this information into 3 really broad domains that do a good job at encompassing some of the specific SEL activities and programs that are carried out by each site. And so Gabby's gonna start us off with going over the first domain, which is PBIS.
Hi everybody, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So PBIS are positive behaviors, intervention, and support. And we have seen an overall success in our schools, climate and culture since implementing and building our PBIS models at each school. We've seen a decrease in disciplinary referrals. It has established consistency and created
Sheila, we lost you a little bit.
Gabby.
Gabby.
We might have some people to go off video if we're having trouble with audio.
Okay, if anyone that has their video on would click that video box, and that'll shut off your video, and it may be easier to keep the connection for audio if you do that for us. Gabby,
where do I cut off? Do you want me to start somewhere?
Yeah, start at probably like after the first sentence or so.
Okay, so we have seen a decrease in disciplinary referrals in building our PBIS models. We've seen an established consistency, and we've created more than ever focus on relationships. At the 3 middle school sites, the following programs are Tier 1 universal support that directly support peer-led skill building. Peer mediators is an 8th grade leader program who are trained and help other students with conflict management and resolution skills. Did I freeze?
Nope.
Nope, that was good.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, perfect. Character Strong and Second Step, which are curriculum that is used school-wide or in classroom settings to teach social emotional practices such as empathy, problem solving, and healthy relationships. Our school clubs, our Clean Team, which is kids leading everyone against nicotine. Our web orientation leaders, where everyone belongs, which are 8th grade leaders who push into our advisement classes monthly and provide hands-on learning and activities as mentors for our 6th graders. And lastly, our PBIS doors and reward systems that we have implemented.
And then the next domain addresses some tools and opportunities that allow our students to learn emotional regulation. And obviously we use this information with an emphasis on trauma-informed practices. And the goal here is to help students develop coping skills so that they can self-regulate and successfully transition back into a classroom setting when they get upset or they're having a bad day and they become dysregulated or deregulated. So a huge trend right now to really meet those needs is our regulation rooms. And so Chico Junior calls theirs the Zen Den, Marsh calls ours the Gator Getaway. Chico Junior's working on theirs as well. But these are safe spaces that offer a variety of opportunities for kids. So there's high intensity output. So you can see in the photo there, that might look like a punching bag or a trampoline or some stable exercise machine. There's also visualization techniques, a safe space to do yoga and to practice meditation. There's also some sensory input items, so things that kids can fidget with. And it's overall a safe space for kids to take a break, get away, and really regulate themselves. And if they don't have those skills, then we can practice that skill setting. So breathing techniques and all of that sort of thing. We also utilize Inner Explorer, which is an online curriculum where students can go through like a 5-minute or a 10-minute session to calm themselves down through mindfulness. And then we also have Chico State interns, as well as we partner with Stonewall and bring resources in to support students as well for mentorship. And then we offer toolkits. And so that could look like fidgeting toys, timers, stress balls, anything that can really, kids can get their hands on, so their brain can go from a unregulated place to a regulated place, and they can transition back into the classroom. And then Gabby's going to talk about the last domain, which is our groups, small groups.
Great. So our small groups are identified through a variety of data points. As I believe somebody shared at the beginning, we use several different programs to help us gather that data. But this is how we get focused, need-based SEL support. So these are ongoing small groups.
Yeah, Gabby, we're losing you again.
Entry, there's restorative questions that we guide students through to help solve conflicts with each other. And we have put together Paradise Campfire groups in the last year and a half. Oh, total silence. Can you not hear me, Kathleen?
We can hear you, but you're fading in and out.
Oh, okay. So we've run Paradise Campfire groups the last year and a half. We have our safe space group, our boys and our girls council and circle group, and then our social group. And then at March, we have an advisement period that's 25 minutes at the beginning of the day, 4 days a week. And we run social groups and other interventions during this time. It's a smaller-based learning environment and advisement, and it's really created a homeroom or a community sense for our students.
And so one of the parts we didn't hear, Gabby, was the like restorative practices as well. But also the 3 domains and all the activities and programs that kind of fall under these umbrellas really do emphasize the importance and the impact of fostering healthy relationships amongst our students as well as between our students and staff. And that, of course, directly supports social emotional learning and development for our students across the middle school site. There was a question in the chat about the timing for kids to be in the Gator Getaway or the Zen Den. We have staff available, counseling, admin, and we take kids there, and our goal is about 10 to 15 minutes. We want to really offer that opportunity for them to regulate and return to class. But they can stay as long as needed. Yeah, Kelly, you know, if a kid is really needing some more time, that's absolutely, you know, we do have times where a kid could be in there for 20 or 30 minutes because they're having a really rough time. So it just depends, but we shoot for 10 to 15 minutes.
That's great.
Okay, and so from there, we're gonna go on to, chat if it doesn't move, I think that's what it goes. Back down for a second.
Use the space bar.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna go into the high school programs, and our high school presenter is Jessica Frisk, and she's a senior high wellness counselor at the Alternative Ed campus. And we're really happy to have her. She's really made a huge difference in a short period of time, so we are happy that she was able to join us and share what she's doing at the Alternative Ed campus. Excellent.
Yeah, thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Pretty good? Good?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
Okay, good, okay. I'm sorry, I'm like dealing with some sundown lighting, anyway, just don't be distracted. So yeah, my name's Jessica Prisk. My background, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm also currently enrolled in an online PPS and social work course through San Jose State, so I'll be a candidate for that soon. I'm really excited. And yeah, I started working on the Fairview campus October 2019. My title is an intervention counselor. And the goal of this, I believe, the funding for this position as well, there was another counselor assigned between PV and Chico High, I believe, is to offer, support services, specifically very trauma-informed services in the aftermath of Camp Fire. And I believe it was Northern Valley Community Foundation offered the funding for this position, is my understanding. But yeah, I began in fall, and I'll just kind of tag along to what Sheila and Gabby were talking about Zenden. So my presence on the campus is in the Zenden, or as they just kind of call it, room 5. And pretty much it was like perfect timing where we were able to request resources for the room. Very similar to what Sheila and Gabby were talking about as far as sensory items, fidget toys, weighted blankets. I have a comfy couch, bag chair, as well as a table setting area for groups, which I'll mention. So mood lighting, just a relaxed, calm space where I can meet with kids, and also kids can utilize it too. If they're, typically I'll always like to check in with them briefly, but if they're just kind of wanting some downtime, just to relax, I have as well as like mindfulness coloring books, just a lot of fun supplies to kind of center kids, as well as cancellation headphones too, if they just need to get away from all sensory. So it's been fun being located in that spot. And like I said, so I meet with kids individually and in groups. Pretty much my referral sources from staff, admin, case managers. Because of my participation in SST meetings, I often can also, there can be students that are already receiving services on campus from St. Victor or Youth for Change or HEART or BCOE, but say they need like an additive support on campus. Let me open the chat. Okay, so, sorry, I lost my train of thought, but that's pretty much my referral source, as well as kind of just on the spot, being available for kids that are having a hard time, need someone to talk to. So kind of my individual services can look like brief check-in, introduction, I'm here to support you, here's a safe space, because a lot of the kiddos on campus, especially ones that have been going to Fairview previously, aren't aware that we have this space established now. So it's kind of welcoming kids to this whole new world, and myself, and now they have this place on campus to go to when they're having a hard time. And then kids that are willing and that I, develop a positive relationship with, I can offer check-ins weekly. It really kind of depends on the need, as well as, I've got teachers or staff telling me that, someone, they're looking like they need a little extra support today, so they can refer them to me and meet with them. And a big part of my role too, and what I really enjoy doing just from my social work background, is a lot of collaboration with the outside agencies. So in the last year, just kind of making my face known to the counselors that offer school-based services, communicating them with per release of information through email and phone to follow up on kids, what I see in school, and say some things that, I would really like to ensure they talk about with their other counselor, because they get to go in the home and meet parents more often. So collaboration was kind of a big key, and kind of in the aftermath of shelter in place, one of the first things I did was to really get a lot of resources out in email to staff about what's the status of programs right now, who's offering telehealth, Zoom for counseling and all that. So I had a big role in kind of making sure everyone had up-to-date information and knew how to reach people. And I'll just say too, for my individual and group services in this time frame, I've been using a lot of email, phone, and Zoom to continue meeting with kids. And I'll transition to talking about a couple of the groups that I've been either arranged or facilitated on campus. The flyer that you see was for, the students came up with this name, which is awesome, Unlimited Minds Group. I had a couple of awesome seniors. Right around the time I started, we're really wanting to have a group on campus to talk about social emotional well-being, mental health stigma, and just supporting other kids. So we kind of came together. They had a beautiful outline, created this flyer, and this has been a group that's been occurring weekly on our campus. It's either it can be referral by teachers who encourage, but the two seniors involved were really kind of the best recruiters in telling other students of, hey, there's this awesome group. We talk about really cool things. I think you enjoy coming. Topics, I really like to get it, it's like I facilitate, but I like to encourage peer-led as much as possible in terms of what topics are important to students at that time. We've discussed depression, suicide, self-esteem, grief and loss. I always kind of like to turn it around to some part as far as emotional intelligence as well, because I think, our students who come from a variety of backgrounds, I think offering a very strength-based approach to emotional intelligence kind of puts the power in their chair as far as like, I can self-regulate myself, I can identify the way that I'm feeling, and, I can use my positive relationships to help me. So it all that's kind of my little throw into it, is I really like to teach kids emotional intelligence and help them be aware of what they're feeling. So our group is very much centered around check-ins. They came up with kind of this color code activity of what color describes their feeling, and I know that we were this kind of got pushed away with everything happening at the end of the year, but I believe we were going to talk about maybe implementing some, color coding, identification of feelings. Gosh, my admin can speak more on it, but I think that comes from that multi-tiered system of support and one of the interventions we're going to use. So I thought it was neat that we kind of do that in the Unlimited Minds group as far as just emotional identification, where am I at, how am I feeling? So focus a lot on that. And I'll also add too, there's another group on campus. It's run by Promotore's Outreach through Northern Valley Catholic Social Services. They were actually initiated by one of our targeted case managers, Nancy Medina, and she kind of passed it along to me. I'm just kind of present in the facilitation. They offer, it's a girls-oriented group, so female identifying students. It's all about empowerment, self-esteem. They always come with a really fun, structured activity, and I get to be a part of that, as well as recruit some kiddos to join. So that was kind of happening, and we just started on Zoom, which is really exciting. Got some attendees. What else? I'll mention I work alongside John Siebel, another LCSW on campus, so we kind of often work together as far as referrals. He's been on the campus longer than me, so sometimes there's certain students that he knows a little better, and he also focuses more on the BI, behavioral intervention, for the in-school suspension students. So we can kind of go back and forth, as well as giving students options for who they connect with. If someone has, say, a preference for a female counselor, I'm available, or for male, we kind of, we offer different things, and we can kind of, we've had a lot of good teamwork as far as
That's good, Jessica.
supporting kids. I feel like I'm taking a lot of time, but that's kind of the gist. It's been a lot of different things, and just integrating myself on campus with my background, what I already offer, but a lot of it can be meeting kids where they're at and offering tools that they can buy into, and seems like they've responded pretty well, especially to that kind of peer support opportunity with group. And
Thank you, Jessica,
getting,
thank you so
getting
much.
kids aware of why mental health and awareness and social emotional support is important. So
All right, thank you very much.
that's it.
Thank you, Jessica, I appreciate that detailed information. Thank you for all your help. The next group of people that we're gonna, talk with are, let's see, just have to do it in that inside.
Use the space bar.
That's right, this is, I think with the chat stuff doesn't very. Just being so finicky. Well, the next group up is going to be, the targeted case managers. Fausto Fuentes is one of our, case managers that he will talk about what they do. Fausto, are you out there?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Awesome, sweet. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Fausto Fuentes. I'm a bilingual targeted case manager for 2 different schools for Chico Unified, Marsh Junior High and Chapman Elementary School. See the points here, identifying at-risk populations. So this we kind of do across the board, whether it's at a primary, secondary, or high school level that we meet with our either wellness team. So we have a wellness team at Chapman that where we meet with our psychologist, our counselor, our principal, myself, our resource specialist, and at a junior high level we have our interns, which Sheila and Gabby had mentioned, that are a great support for our students and staff as well. And what we do is we meet once a week, about an hour and a half, depending on how many different students there are that we need to talk about, and really come up with supports for these kids. And this would be like varying supports from tier 1 to tier 3 supports in place, whether students need to meet one-on-one with our Chico State students and/or meet with our counselors, or need referrals outside to NBCSS or Victor, reach out to Youth for Change, or Far Northern. So one of the things that we do is by identifying risk populations, the whole campfire thing happened, and then we kind of all work together to kind of check in on these families and see, who's got an apartment and who's kind of settled down, who hasn't yet, who's still living with another family member or a friend, and what kinds of supports do they need? Are they having any issues regarding like attendance, transportation, anything like that? And we kind of help solve all of those things. I wanted to talk about another thing that I really work with is attendance. So at both sites we have attendance teams, and also our counselors are a huge help in that, both at a primary and secondary level. That we kind of come up with a list of students who are not showing up to school, and so usually I'm kind of first in line to contact these families and figure out what's happening, whether it's transportation or the student's just not getting up. Is it a parent problem? Does the family need something from us? How can we help them and resolve this these attendance issues? There is also a big aspect that I work with our ELD population and working with families. So we have meetings in that, and I stay really closely connected with all of those families. One of the things, supports for families, like parents in particular, there was a picture that was shown at the beginning of our presentation when our counselors were talking about Kimochi and different SEL and SES supports. We actually had Chapman Parent University, and it's a curriculum through Raising Highly Capable Kids. There's about 13, 14 lessons, and so it was fantastic. That's the second time that Chapman's done it, and we were looking to kind of expand that at a district level and have almost every school participate in that. That was amazing. Aside from that, we also have SFB, which is Strengthening Families Program. SFB is actually starting, they're taking up names for families, so we're kind of identifying, which families could really benefit from that. It starts this September, first week of September, so hopefully everything goes okay with that. Another thing that I'm really kind of involved in is 2 different clubs at Marsh Junior High, which is Impact Mentoring. So Impact Mentoring is basically working one-on-one with so our students, whether it's 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, are paired up with one, one excelling high school student, whether from Pleasant Valley High School or Chico Senior High School, and they kind of meet one-on-one and talk about how their weekend was, struggles that they've been going through, and kind of really getting them out of their shell and knowing, allowing these kids to know what their weaknesses and strengths are and building those weaknesses into strengths. So and currently we are meeting about once a week for impact mentoring, and we have different games. And one of the things that we're really focused in that ties into SEL and SES support is basically asking the students, what is one thing that you do or that you did this week to kind of work on yourself or have some peace of mind, kind of check out from all the homework and everything that's happening out in the world, all the negative news. So we kind of check out from everything that's happening and indulge ourselves into, kind of working on ourselves and working on just focusing on each other and being there for each other. Another thing is Club Live. So we have somebody from Butte County Behavioral Health, Tori Diaz. She's amazing. She's actually the one that runs both of these clubs. I kind of help oversee, and then with the help from our counselors that we had gotten referrals from students that would like to join these or have joined these clubs. But it's basically building leaders. So if I were to put it in a nutshell, and we meet once a week currently, and so that's super important. Another thing from BCOE, so we kind of work closely with Tiffany Danger, I see Ted, he had mentioned CUSD, so a lot of the things that a lot of my fellow coworkers, TCMs at other schools, that are also kind of looking out to CUSD, and they're just major help that they kind of help find resources and services for our families, which makes it a whole lot easier. Let's see, there was one more thing that I wanted to share. I think that was it. No. So one of the things that we're doing now, like how are we supporting our families now that the COVID outbreak has happened? So one of the things that I've been doing a lot is just kind of, we have quite a few families who don't have internet. So I've been sitting there and literally I'm on my phone while they're on their phone, and we kind of do FaceTime or even talking on the phone, hey, read me this, or screenshot this, send it to me, and then I send back what it should look like, or explain in detail how to sign up for these, for like Comcast or AT&T. Comcast is like a super popular one currently. And keeping in touch with families through Zoom, Cisco WebEx, Facebook, Skype, text messaging, and I found that text messaging is like the most effective one for me. Just offering myself as a support, whether it's in homework or any questions that they might have about school, support systems. BCOE, actually, Josh Jindar from BCOE's actually reached out and offering support to our homeless population and just school ties families. So so a lot of support here and there, also for our teachers too.
Good, thank you, Pastor.
I had a question. Is there a
Yes.
way, I thought I texted one, but I guess it didn't show up. So are you inviting the preschool parents on campuses, in our campuses, are you inviting those preschool parents to the Parenting University?
Preschool meaning from different schools or
We
from
have-
Chapman specifically?
Well, from Chapman, since you're on that site, maybe you can speak to that.
Yeah, so anybody from, we kind of kept it just Chapman parents. If there was a parent that had other kids from another school, then we as a team, we had decided that maybe bring 2 or 3 because of budget issues, and it's expensive, and there is a lot of groundwork that needed to be planned beforehand, and just every single reading class. So yeah, everybody's. We're hoping that when it expands to a district level, then we have more parents that kind of join that, and then we can help facilitate transportation too. Because if it's at one main location, say Marsh, which is usually the spot that a lot of meetings happen, large meetings happen, then we're hoping to kind of target a bigger crowd, and then also kind of figure out which families are really the ones that could benefit greatly from this Chapman Parent University class, or raising highly capable kids curriculum.
Right, but you are at Chapman, correct? You are
Correct.
working at Chapman, and you are aware, of course, I'm sure, that there's a preschool on site at Chapman?
Correct, yes. We do invite.
Okay, so I just want to make
preschool.
sure that when you guys are expanding this program, that you make sure you invite those preschool parents, because they are critical. Those are the ones who really need to be going to those parenting classes.
Correct, yeah, and knowing that they're gonna be with us for years.
Exactly.
Going on, yeah.
We want to get early intervention as early as possible, so please be sure that those are targeted very heavily.
Yes, ma'am.
And before
You
we-
got it.
Thank you.
We'll do it.
Before we go on to the next slide, I have a couple of questions that were in there. One was Kathy mentioned male counselors. We do have several male counselors already on staff. We have Deb Wyan over at Chico High. We have one at PV.
Jorge Salas.
Yes.
Yeah, Chico Junior.
And Chico Junior. So there are quite a few spattered throughout the district. There were questions about the interns and what the program takes with. At Marsh Junior High, they do a really good job of including a lot of the interns from Chico State. And they do some of their intern time there. Those are unpaid positions, but they can do group counseling and those types of things. And then there was a question about drug and alcohol abuse. And that is one of the areas that Care Solace, you'll hear more about that. That is one of the areas that Care Solace, we're really utilizing them to respond to those areas of drug and alcohol abuse. We're gonna move on to, hold on again. We're gonna move on to mindfulness and self-care. Tina.
And tell me when I move up a little closer to the mic if you can.
Thanks, Diane. So mindfulness and self-care has been around a long time, but has really come to the forefront in society and just in culture, in our culture today, about 4 years ago. And we started thinking about that idea of mindfulness as a tool here with staff in mind, even before we started with kids, because it's very important to all of us to have healthy staff members who can have tools when they need them, and mindfulness really kind of fit the bill for that. It went into how can we teach our students this, how can we express this. Both Diane and I and many staff members are practitioners of mindfulness and have seen the benefits of it. It's free, you can learn it, anybody can do it, and it has tremendous impact. Data has shown that it has tremendous impact on the brain, and that's a whole other conversation. So we actually were able to meet with some local folks who also believe in the importance of mindfulness and how it positively impacts the brain. And these folks were able to make a donation of quite a bit of money for several staff members, about 75 total, teachers and administrators, to Mindful Schools. Wow. It was a 6-week program. I took it, loved it, learned a lot from it. But one thing that would, if that were to continue on, teachers or staff members would provide the mindfulness lessons, couldn't participate at the same time. So funny enough, as this was all happening, InterExplorer came to us right as the campfire happened. And InterExplorer is a web-based program based out of Oakland, actually started by one of the people who was at Mindful Schools for a long time. So the programs are very similar. The beauty about InterExplorer is that it, to me and to all of us in the services, it was a big win. Not only can students participate, the teacher or counselor can participate, and there is parent participation and family participation. So the ability to have all of those pieces connected and to have a span that goes from TK all the way to grade 12 with grade level accordingly for time and different things like that, it was just a very, very well done program.
So Tina, how do you share that then with the parents?
So the parents have had notices for the last couple of years, go home via the school. They can send it through Aries communication. When students have gone home and told their families about them, about InterExplorer, they have communicated with parents, so teachers have been a great conduit of information. It is on our website right now under our distance learning supports. It's there actually all the time, but anybody can go on. One thing that they've done at InterExplorer in the COVID era is they have made the app more available and more friendly for parent participation. So they've addressed that. It is open to every CUSD staff member, and we highly encourage people to utilize it as they wish. You know, the TK teacher will tell me she uses it for 3 minutes when kids traditionally would come in from recess for kind of a cool down time. It really allows basically people to become present in the moment. We know that anxiety and anxiousness happens when we spin about things that have been happening in the past or things in the future. Which in today's world, that is a big concern. So this is a tool, InterExplorer is a tool to ground us in the present moment.
Also to reduce reactivity.
Absolutely.
To
There's that
create
space in
that
the brain.
pause, so that, especially with kids that react rather quickly, is to get them trained where they can pause.
And it's free, they can do it anywhere. Kids can do it at home. Kids have responded beautifully to it because they have felt their bodies calm, and they have that space now created between the stimulus and how they're choosing to react. Adults, same thing.
Yeah. I was gonna say, it's a big benefit for the parents because the
Oh.
whole family can benefit from
Yes,
that.
absolutely. We've had great feedback from it. It's a great thing to use. It takes practice. If anything I were to improve it, I would say just keep practicing it, keep doing it. It's not a one and done.
Okay, and then from there, we're going to move on to some of the data that we've been collecting over the past year and over time from many of our different resources. And so Dana, Tim is going to kind of lead us into that, and then Dana is going to be our data presenter tonight. Wow. Yeah, so Tim, you're first.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Tonight you're going to see some data on our social emotional services that we are providing to students. This is really the first time I presented any kind of social emotional data to the board. We expect this to be a regular thing every year. As this is our first stab, please realize that the data that Dana is about to talk you through by no means encompasses everything that our targeted case managers, counselors, and counseling assistants do. It's simply our first stab at getting a read on what's going on in the schools, and we expect to refine that over the years. An example of that would be Gator getaway visits or Zen-Den visits that were mentioned earlier are not included in this data. This is just simply data as our staff has entered it into Aries. And like I said, we'll continue to refine that over the years. And so for all those folks on the call right now, in the counseling, targeted case manager and counseling assistant roles, please know that we're looking for input on data collection ideas and reporting ideas to better capture what you do each day. So Of the 3 data sets, the counselor and counseling specialist data is brand new to you. The Care Solace, we have not presented to you in a board meeting yet, but that data is presented to, that data is presented by Care Solace to us in aggregate form, and the targeted case managers have been doing a great job collecting data for many years, and you have seen that during the LCAP process. So just wanted to introduce those 3 data sets and say, beyond the data sets that we're going to show when Jessica Capen gets into Helvin and EduClimber, we expect those 2 software platforms to offer us a much more robust look into what is going on with social emotional services. So I'm going to turn it over to Dana right now.
All right, Dana, you go, girl.
Thank you, Tim. All right, so as you heard from Ashley, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. As you heard from Ashley and Kim earlier, 100% of our students are receiving those Tier 1 counseling services, which include the Komochi, Toolbox, and Second Step in the classroom from our counseling assistants and our counselors. So in the next few slides, this being the first, we're going to share our Tier 2 and Tier 3 data. And this slide just represents all of our student groups by percent who have been accessed SEL services at least one time. So as you can see, our foster and homeless are the highest needs, which they're student groups that we would have expected to access our counseling services, actually did access the services. So you see the foster, the homeless, and then we see that our American Indian and our African American students come right after our students with low socioeconomic status with accessing those SEL services. And then all the other groups fall into a similar pattern. Thank you for changing that. The line down the middle is the average for elementary, which is that 24.3% of our students accessing SEL services. And then to the right of the schools, you'll see your counselor and your counseling assistant time, and then the total time comes to the right of that each school has. You can change the slide again. Thank you. Again, on this slide, the line down the middle shows the average for secondary, which is 17.4% of our students accessing SEL services. And like Tim said, this information comes from our counseling tab in Aries. Can you go to the next slide, Diane? And then this slide is our last slide, looking at alternative education. And looking at that line down the middle is 23.9% is an average of our students accessing the SEL services. And that is the data for our social emotional needs in our district.
Okay, and so we have a couple chat items here. Eileen is asking about board members getting access to the parent university, and I would think that would be a yes if we know about it.
Absolutely, we can get her access, either the free one through Inner Explorer, or she can contact me and I can hook her up. We have access through the end of June through TK Unified right now.
For Inner Explorer, Dana, we got an invoice to pay it for next year, so it's gonna continue.
Right on. So excited. That is very cool. It's a great website.
Hey, this is Eileen, and that one slide, the percentages were not visible underneath the shared screen for McManus and Citrus, and I can't remember now what the other school, but we're the top at the percentage of usage.
Go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go back to it right now.
Yeah.
In the chats up, it hides the slide that's being
And then
shared.
it's got a delay.
We're trying to move back to that right now.
What is the percentage on,
There you go.
well, no, it's there, thank you. McManus, Citrus, what are their percentages?
If you move your picture, you'll be able to see that.
Oh,
There you go.
I didn't know you could.
I just had to figure it out myself, Eileen. It wasn't visible on my screen either.
Yeah, okay, that helps.
Okay, so yeah, there are your numbers right there. Chapman's at 13.6% and Hook Grove was at, I think it was 8.9%? 8.7% on that. And like we said, this is the first time run at the counselors and counselors assistants putting this information in, so this is a baseline. The data will be refined and improved as we move on.
Diane, how do we determine the amount of time that counseling or counseling assistants spend at each school? Is it based on the student population, the number of students, or?
Yeah, for counseling assistants, we went through a formula to see how to split those ratios. Some schools use some title money to extend the hours of counseling assistants and counselors. So there is a baseline of what they get, and then they can extend that.
I see, thank you.
Dana, this is Eileen.
Yes.
I'm looking at the elementary tier 2 and 3 counseling. I see that McManus, Citrus, and Chapman are all relatively close in the amount of staffing they have, and yet Chapman's usage is much less than McManus and Citrus. Is that, could anyone speculate on why that's the case?
Diane, you want me to do it or do I do it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want me to answer that?
No, Dana, we got that in the
Whoever
room.
wants to jump right
I'll
in.
jump right in.
It's Ashley.
No,
So,
No, not.
I entered my data a little wonky. I didn't do it correctly. But at Chapman, I'm really utilized for our Tier 1 services a lot. So I'm doing a lot of whole school activities that sometimes I can't enter in areas where I don't know how I'm not doing it correctly. So I spend a lot of my time with the majority of students that I can. And sometimes it's in Tier 1 services, so not necessarily Tier 2 and Tier 3.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, I noticed the anomaly and I thought, well, gonna ask a question.
Yeah, totally.
And we'll get that straightened out.
Okay, and I'm just gonna do a quick check if there were other questions.
Same question about Chico High,
Okay.
John? I don't know if you know the answer to that.
In the chat.
Why is it so?
Yeah, why is Chico High's utilization so low?
Yeah, we're talking, the biggest issue right now is trying to consistently enter data fields, and one of the tasks that Tim and I are going to be working on is ensuring that everything is entered under the correct tab. So, for example, in Aries, we have some staff who are entering things under the counseling tab, some staff are entering things under a visitation or a guidance or even intervention tab. And we just need to consistently enter, and then also set the parameters for entries. For example, if one counselor has not been trained as the same as the rest, he or she may only enter a data point after 2 contacts. Maybe they didn't enter it after the first one, but they knew they were gonna try again, they couldn't get a hold of the person. And so we need to be sure that we're entering data consistently.
And that's really on us. That's a training, and as Tim started this is our first time sharing this data, and I know when I looked at it, I was making some phone calls like, whoa, what's going on? And so, but it is where we are right now, and we expect next time when we show this to you, it will be much better.
Excellent. We need to get better.
I wanted to make sure that there wasn't a stigma issue, that we didn't have staff or faculty who were thinking it would be a negative thing to note that a student came in and, needed certain kind of services. So I think that training to be consistent is important, but I also think to encourage staff that this is not a negative thing about a student coming in for services.
Absolutely. I think it's just more we're new at collecting the data and we need uniformity in how we do it. I think that the school sites are very appreciative of having the resources. Now we just have to document so that we can show we're utilizing the dollars wisely.
Okay. The next piece of data that we have up on the board there is Care Solus. And Ted, are you out there to talk about Care Solus?
I'm here. I'm going to share a little bit about Care Solus for 2 minutes.
Please.
Great. Just you guys are very well versed, obviously, with what our counselors are doing and target case managers and counseling assistants. So just to talk about Care Solus specifically for a couple minutes, it's been a great addition into our kind of smorgasbord of services. I think we've had really kind of a gap, and Care Solus has done a great job filling in that niche and that gap. So if you think of a linking system, so Care Solus goes out, researches and vets all of the different kinds of support providers out there for kind of deeply therapeutic supports, and they create a huge database of it. So we can just make very quick referrals into them, and they will search out everything from families without insurance to families with good insurance coverages, and they will kind of provide whatever level of support the family or the individual is looking for, and get them hooked up into that kind of therapeutic social emotional support structure that they are looking for. So it's been a great addition for us. I think, like Pastor said, we make a lot of referrals to them, and they do everything, or we can do everything from just giving a parent a phone number, and they can contact Care Solus and get that process to start happening themselves. And then Care Solus does something which they call a warm handoff. So if a parent, I think historically we might have just given a parent a phone number and hoped they were going to make that call and everything was going to go well. Care Solus has upped it significantly where they will actually make that phone call for the parent. They will make sure they've got the appointment set. They will follow up and see how it's going, and then they will let us know without violating any situations that that parent is actually hooked up and getting support services or students also. So
Yeah, we just got we just got an additional grant to provide to the county more case managers because there was a huge gap. Here we are almost 2 years after the Camp Fire, and still thousands of people were still without resources. So what are they doing in that context when the case managers are not here yet, not available?
Yeah, they're kind of actually filling a little bit, Kathy, you think they're filling that niche a little bit. Right? And I use that conduit to get families hooked up to kind of mental health supports. I would say they're managing it, but they're definitely the hookup or the linking connection for some of those families, and they do a really thorough job following up on it, making sure those families are linked up with a wide range. It can be everything from teletherapy to behavioral health supports, or like I said, with good insurance coverage, and also they get people hooked up and meeting with appropriate mental health supports.
And I will add to that, the beauty of Care Solus is they are not limited to the local resources. That was the challenge we had before, is that we were limited to the local resources only. Care Solus through teletherapy and other means can connect people to providers within California and beyond California. So it greatly expanded our access to providers.
So do we get, and I know we have, federal restrictions on it, but do we get a contextualized feedback loop about whether the resources they're being connected to are actually able to really deal with some of their issues? I know that for many families, the issues are being driven by housing and money limitations and, where they could go or what they could do. So what is the kind of the detail of our feedback system?
Care Solus, Kathy, takes a lot of pride in making sure the referrals they're putting out there, the agencies are very vetted. So if they have agencies that they're investigating and they have less than really stellar reviews from the different past clients they've had, they do not make it on the list for them. So they really go out of their way to make sure that the agency or groups or people we are referring to have a great track record of those kinds of things. So I think that's the feedback loop, where we're only making referrals to agencies that have a pretty solid track record.
Additionally, Kathy, when they get the referrals, part of the questionnaire asks if they have insurance, if they have Medi-Cal, if they have no insurance, if they're low income. That way they can connect them to providers that either take Medi-Cal, have sliding scale services, to behavioral health. So they look also at their resources through home and their financial resources, their insurance resources.
And CareSol gives us a very nicely detailed monthly report too, of how many referrals, the success rate of them, kind of general categories that families are getting as well. So we've been really happy to kind of see what's happening.
All right, good, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to our positive behaviors interventions and supports that Jessica Capon is doing, and she's also gonna lead us into some of our next steps of what's gonna be happening in the district through the end of this year and on into the future. Jessica Capon.
Hi there, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm so excited about what we've actually accomplished in the very short time we had together. But anyway, our goal at the start of the year with PBIS implementation at the high school was to start from the ground up. They had nothing at that point. They had a lot of things going, but they didn't have them all succinctly put together. And so they have absolutely blown my mind on the work that they've done. So I'm overwhelmed by their commitment, and the high school teams made just so much effort to do this. And anyway, I'm excited to report that they had, they've already gotten to the place where they have a full manual ready to go. They have their procedures all written for their schools. They have lessons to go with each and every procedure. And then they're going to teach the students those lessons at the very beginning of the year, and then incrementally throughout the year as they are needed. And then they also have positive rewards for those students who are, acting appropriately and doing the behaviors that they're teaching them to do. So that's exactly what we wanted and where we wanted them to go, and they've just absolutely, it was amazing. They also have a flow chart that responds to how they deal with discipline issues, and it's consistent throughout their implementation. So that's a really, I think it's a really good thing for the high schools to have, because they didn't have it before. So that really ties them in and unifies them to our entire district. Then for the elementary and junior high schools, and yes, I'm reading because I wrote a book. We already had Tier 1 supports pretty well set. However, they were not consistent in their implementation, and they weren't consistent in their manuals. So what we wanted to do was make them consistent. We also had Tier 1 and Tier 2 and Tier 3 beginning in all of our schools, elementary and junior high, yet they still needed to be made consistent. So that's what we did, and we worked for this ever since February backwards. We worked really, really hard to make those consistent. So our teams came together on different days, and we worked to make our manuals consistent, and then we talked a lot and collaborated a lot on our interventions, so that we were using common interventions and then finding ways to track those interventions, which is essential. We need to know if our interventions are actually working. Otherwise, we're putting all this effort into things that we are kind of willy-nilly kind of putting together. We don't know if they're actually working. So the data is really important. So I'm gonna kind of go, and you guys stop me as I go, and you can ask me questions, but I'm gonna kind of bridge the gap between PBIS, which we have had as a district, and multi-tier systems of support we've had as a district. However, we have lacked in a couple different areas, and this is where I really want to talk about EduClimber and Kelvin. So as we focused on creating a unified approach to PBIS and MTSS this year, through our collaborative meetings with all the elementary and all the secondary teams, we identified 2 areas that we really needed to improve upon. And this is where Kelvin and EduClimber came right in. And so I'm reading, Eileen, yes, it's not there you go. It's positive behavior interventions and supports. And so that's PBIS. It's well known. It's gone back into the 80s. And I think you guys have a packet that's included in your PowerPoint about that. So as we refined our tier 2 and tier 3 intervention processes, and that was at the secondary and elementary levels. And high school does this, so please don't think that they don't do this. It's just that it wasn't systematized yet, and now it will be systematized as we go. So we were greatly in need of a social emotional screener. We had it at different sites in different ways and through different programs, and so we really needed to unify that. And so that's what we were focusing in on, and we really wanted something research-based and also culturally biased, so that we took out the cultural bias in the questions. Because I could create a question and think it's an amazing question, yet I have the cultural bias of my culture. And so that your answers are going to reflect that cultural bias. So that was something very important to me, is that we reduced that, and that we were able to take the answers and we were able to really look at them for what they were responding about. During our search, we discovered Kelvin, and it quickly rose to the top of our choices. Absolutely. And I hope you guys take a moment to go on to kelvin.education and really look at their story as to why they started this company. Because I'm telling you, that's what hooked me, because I was like, you know what? You're speaking to all of our students at Chico Unified. The kids that are slipping through the cracks and the kids that are not getting identified because of various reasons, whatever those reasons are. And I'm sure you'll have information in your packet about where to go so that you can look in all of this information too. I know I'm speaking quickly. Anyway, so we discovered Kelvin, and now Chico Junior has had the privilege, as well as Citrus, to begin piloting with it. And yes, a pilot means there's struggles and issues all along the way, but I can tell you that today we did our first pulse, which is what a survey is, what they call a survey. It's a mini little survey to our students, and it went out today, this morning, and I had the privilege of watching my daughter, who's an 8th grader at Chico Junior, actually take it. So I got to see from beginning to end what happened. So when a student opens up their Chromebook for the very first time that day that a pulse is scheduled, they will see a little puppy on the right-hand side of their screen. And that puppy prompts them to start answering the questions. And it says, your school wants to hear about you. And then we had 4 questions, and 3 of them were related to how they were feeling about this situation. So were they feeling connected to their school still? Did they need any supports from us? Did they need to hear from a counselor? And what was one thing that they wanted to tell their teacher? And so I watched my daughter do it, and it took less than 2 minutes for her to answer. Granted, they were fill-in questions and she didn't have a lot to answer, and I told her, hey, don't write a novel here, just because she was sitting right by me. So I said, hey, don't write a novel, just tell us what you really think. We got 35% of our population to answer this poll in less than 6 hours. So it is open for 7 days, and the puppy actually wags its tail, and then it starts to jump around. So it's actually making more movement on their screen. So it's reminding them they need to do the polls. And then we can send out extra reminders as needed. But once we get that information, then we're able to tally it all up. We have all these great algorithms and whatnot. So we can actually take it by subgroup. We can figure out which of our subgroups need more support in what areas. So what social emotional areas they need. Is it safety at school? Is it they're not feeling connected to school, they need more options? Do they not feel like they have a voice? Academics wise, are they not feeling like they're supported by their teachers or their administrators or their staff? There's tons and tons of dimensions that we can go into. We need to identify them prior, and this test pilot, we're really just talking about COVID and trying to just get a pulse on our kids for that. But next year, we'll be able to talk about their connectedness at school. So that's Kelvin in a nutshell. And then I'm gonna kind of go on to EduClimber. EduClimber, I haven't had the opportunity yet to experience it on an actual live venue. So when we do, I'm gonna have a lot more information, and so will all of our district administrators. However, what I know about EduClimber is that it's gonna fulfill a need that we absolutely have, and that is to see our student as a whole person. So right now, let's say my SBIT team, my tier 2 team, gets a referral about a student because they're not performing in school, or they're sad, or they're emotionally unstable, or their academics are falling, and our teachers are like, I've tried all these things, I don't know what to do. So currently, we have to pull from a bunch of different sources. So we pull from ARIES, we pull from counseling notes in ARIES, we pull from all these different pieces, we pull from testing, we pull from iReady, and now we would pull from Kelvin to get their social emotional data. Well, this EduClimber is actually gonna take that all, combine it, and then it's gonna make it so that in one data point, we can look at all their pieces that make a whole student. So that's really exciting in a lot of ways because it's gonna inform our intervention teams so that we can make better decisions, smarter decisions on which interventions can actually work for our students. And then we can try those interventions, and EduClimber has a whole platform to be able to actually track the interventions. So that's the other piece, is that district-wide, we're gonna be able to see it all tracked and be able to look at the data and say, oh, this student went through all these interventions and we weren't able to help them, what do we do next? And then the beauty of it being district-wide is that if I at Chico Junior get a student from Citrus, I'm able to see what has previously been done for that student in terms of interventions, and what is that whole student all about, and then I, as the person that's receiving the 6th grader, can say, oh my gosh, they've already done all these things, we need to put them in all these other things to make sure that they're successful in our model of school, which is the 6-period day, and it's a lot scarier. So the sources that EduClimber can pull from are ARIES, test scores, all those things I mentioned, iReady, anything that we collect as data, EduClimber should be able to pull from, and on one screen, one place, it's me, Jessica Capen, and here's all about me. It's all at one place. So that's a really exciting thing, I think, for all of our teams. And I think that's it. If anybody has any questions, I am here. If
Great
not,
job, Jessica.
have a great night.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Jessica, that was a great job, great.
Love your energy.
Yes. And if you have any additional questions, I would love for you to go ahead and send them to Callie, send them to the directors, and we can get you some information out. And
I have a question. You're fading out though, Diana, so. Can you
Okay,
hear me?
sorry, yeah, I hear you, Kathy, so I apologize for that. I'll holler, I keep reminding myself to holler a little louder when we're in here.
Okay, so going back to Jessica's excitement over this, so we have a fair amount of, it is specialized, but national data where the click for a student, especially high school, maybe even junior high, is that finding the thing they're good at, maybe accidentally, with a coach or a teacher. So I'm thinking of, some of our students who end up outstanding athletes, or end up in the performing arts, or end up in CTE, where kind of all the other stuff just flowed past them, and they grab a hold of a log in the stream, and suddenly not only can they breathe, they can see, and they get recognized that they're good at that. So I'm just wondering if we, I would hate to see us get into a shoebox where we're assuming that all aspects of school will be equally valuable to a student. Am I making myself clear?
I'm not sure we've ever been in that spot. We may want to be in that spot, but it's real clear, that's what this whole social emotional learning is about, that students are in different places and they value different things, and we have to learn to adjust accordingly.
Yeah, and we do have so many things that we're providing, and it's all targeted based on an individual student and their needs and the connections they need. And that's why we have so much personnel that's reaching out, why we're having these surveys, because there is no one plan that's gonna fit all of our students at all. And so I think that's the main component that you can see there was so much here, because we do need to meet each student's needs.
And there's a lot of enthusiasm for it as well.
Yeah, so suddenly, Diana, you actually have a voice.
I'm trying to remember that you can't hear me, so I'm trying to speak louder.
No, I appreciate it. And Jessica, I really appreciate your enthusiasm. I just, you know, we do have those clicks that happen, and everybody's seen it happen, but it's hard to predict it, you know?
Yeah, and I think one of the things I would hope for the responses from Kelvin is to really let us know what are we lacking at our schools that's connecting the students. So some of the, I was going through, I mean, their bank of research-based vetted questions are amazing, and I was going through them all Monday to try to create this pulse for the students, and none of them really fit except for the COVID ones right now, because they're not actually at the school site. However, there were a lot of questions that really spoke to, do you go to after school activities? Are you involved in clubs? What clubs would you like to be involved in? And there's lots of open-ended questions. So I think that's gonna really give us a lot of information about what we need at our schools to provide for those students to feel connected.
Yeah. When 50% of our high school students are involved in some kind of athletics, that's just one measure, it's not. But I think if we were to look at how many students for whom there's some click, you know, I'm thinking about the PD, you know, the blue room with the
House of Blue.
Sometimes it's just that accidental connection where they go, oh my God, I can do this. And it's like they found their niche.
I can add one thing here too that might help paint the picture a little brighter is the wellness teams really do look at students one at a time. So when Diane, we actually had this conversation before this presentation tonight. On those wellness teams, they really look at what's going on with the student. What is the student involved in? Home life, extracurricular activities, studies, outside help with counseling if possible. So it really is a unique place to look at students individually, and that's maybe not something that's totally known yet. So if that helps, I hope it does.
Yeah, that's great. That ability to, I think Tim would back this up. The data tends to overwhelm us sometimes, and we miss individual pieces of it that, you know, might be the most responsive.
This is Eileen. I have some input. I think, Diane, this is kind of directed at your student body. A lot of times when you've got kids that aren't involved, that may get asked that open-ended question about what would you like to do, and you don't get a response, that with a particular group of students is the expected response. Because looking inside to find what excites you, what are you interested in, is a difficult place to go. And just because the student can't answer that question doesn't mean it isn't really important to help the student learn to identify what makes you happy, what makes you you know, what is of interest to you, because getting that I don't know answer is pretty safe for a lot of kids.
That'll be interesting to see as we gather the data, because some of the information that Calvin shared with us, because they are kids that were disengaged from school, now they're doing this, And they said the data they're collecting in other districts so far is showing that sometimes those disengaged students, this is such a safe way to do it, that they actually do put in meaningful responses. So it'll be interesting to see as we move on.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all, let's.
Thank you, and can I let the presenters go?
Absolutely. Thank you
Yes.
so much to all of our presenters and
Yes.
for hanging in there with us.
Yes, yeah, thank you very much for all the important information.
Thank you guys, appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
All right, I'm gonna transition us over to a presentation on Oak Ridge, an update.
Yeah, see if it works any better for you.
See if John can figure out how to work this screen. He's our expert.
He's right in the middle of that direct line.
Eric, would you mind pulling up that slides?
You have.
Oh, I have all here?
No, you have the mouse and keyboard, so she can do it.
Oh, it's, okay.
So it's on the screen.
Just think, by the time this stay-at-home is lifted, we're gonna be really good.
Really good. I'll tell you, just in case it took a turn, I hope. you
I
guys-
can't even tell who I'm looking at, I just see a shirt and pants.
Perfect.
Oh, it's John, okay.
Hey, got a good time.
Okay, I just wanted to respond to the board's annual request that we describe how Oak Ridge Academy is doing right now. And I'm speaking on behalf of Rhonda Odlin because she's the brains behind the outfit. And she put together this presentation last year and she's updated it for this year. So we're just gonna move right to what everyone wants to know, and that's the data. But I do want to remind the board and anyone who's watching that about 3 years ago, we realized that we needed to create a flexible, independent learning opportunity for our students to serve all of our students' needs, not just the ones that fit, onto the 42-acre high school campuses. Kids who may want a hybrid learning environment. They may want to have 2 classes taking at Oak Ridge and maybe still keep 4 classes on their comprehensive site. So John Bohannon did a masterful job of creating this opportunity for those students, and his legacy is continuing here. As you can see from the data, our enrollment is thriving at Oak Ridge. And as you can see in blue, we had last year, and in green is this year, and the March data was pre-COVID. So I'm sure everyone is thinking about next year. I know we're all talking about what Oak Ridge could look like next year, knowing that more people are more comfortable with this kind of learning environment. Kathy, can you hear me?
I'm not seeing the data on the Zoom screen. Is everybody else?
Oh, you're not screen
Hear
sharing?
you, but I don't see the data.
Yeah, the data's not getting shared on the.
Oh, okay, okay.
It-
But Bohannon was a genius to beat the virus to the punch.
I'm marking those words down now. We need to share the screen, so you do need to be able to see the data, so we're getting that done, Kathy. There we go. Far left.
What would we do without Erica?
Right?
Oh my God.
Fortunately, we hope not to have to find out.
Right.
It's the story of my life. Being saved.
Oh, wow, those enrollment, oh. Those enrollment numbers are significant.
No, that's what I said, a genius move, and we beat the virus.
Yes, we're excited, and it's gonna grow. It's gonna grow. We're a little apprehensive about that, and we'll talk about the future growth in a second. So we're gonna see how we do with changing slides here. So as you can see here, our ADA comparisons. Again, great numbers. Everything is increasing. And there's a myriad of reasons for that, ranging from marketing to accessibility to personal connections with staff. We don't want to lose sight of the most important piece, and that's the relationships. even though it's distance learning in some cases. So there are all kinds of reasons for those growth numbers, but it's very encouraging. So we always are curious when we're talking about independent study programs and rigor and grades and how that's going to affect students as they move down, down their educational path. So Rhonda felt, and I feel it's important to share where we are with grades. You can see in the blue where folks were a year ago and where their grades are on average right now. And I'm not going to try to make excuses for any of the blue or any of the green, but I do believe wholeheartedly that the results in the green, A, B, and C are directly tied to teacher relationships, teacher interaction with the program, how much more comfortable they are with the platform. I'm thoroughly convinced that was a direct impact on those numbers. So one of the things we're always, we're all competitive. We want to keep students in the district because we believe this is where they need to be. And so we wanted to provide some data about transiency. And as you can see here, I'm not going to read the data specifically to you, but what's really important to us is how many kids stayed in. You can see down at the asterisk at the bottom, we are going to lose some kids, and we know that's going to happen. But the good news, going back to the first slide, we may be losing some kids, but we're gaining more kids. And I think that's important to note. So as I said before, there's some hybrid schedules, which we really encourage. Some kids just feel like they still want to maintain that connection with their comprehensive site, but for various reasons, they want to take courses through Oak Ridge, and we allow them to do that. Of course, they're still eligible for athletics and clubs and any of those connections to a comprehensive site. So we want to make sure students understand that. I know that Erica Smith is working with Ed Services to market the strength of those connections for next year. I don't know how much marketing we're going to need, but just based on what we've been doing the last few weeks, but it's going to be exciting to see how that grows.
This is great data. Yes.
And as I said, staff.
John, how many kids are trying to do the accelerated, especially foreign language or math?
So we have 8 math accelerated students, and we have 3 world language accelerated students. The biggest issue, frankly, in math is if we accelerate kids too quickly in junior high, they run out of high school math classes. So if they finish...
That's our problem, not their problem. We should be hooking them up to either Butte or the university.
Right, so yeah, just to let me finish. So what we do is we ensure that if they're a senior that has a math hole in their schedule, that we arrange their all-day schedule to accommodate them being able to take another class. So I know there's one student at Chico High, a really strong math student who's actually doing that right now. He finished IM3 in 8th grade.
Well, the CSU is moving to this additional math class as a senior. Well, they don't call it math, quantitative reasoning. So they're saying all the juniors for next fall should be in a math class ready to go to the 4th math class or quantitative reasoning. So they have both math and the area G courses. So I think we may see more of this as students get pressured around their other choices that they want to have as well.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen too, just as a result of distance learning. Kids realizing they can move more quickly through the curriculum. So just going to this slide, Ron and I felt it was really important to remind everyone who's working there. And again, it's these folks that are creating that enrollment. They're doing what they need to do to keep those kids connected, even though they're not there every day, or the students aren't being seen every day, they are connecting. So here's some of that math information. acceleration information. We do have a concurrent enrollment right now at Butte College. And we serve all kids, including students with IEPs. And I think that's important for people to recognize. And I know Andrew is excited. Andrew is going to be facilitating graduation for these students because this is a program under Oakdale. It's under their CDS code, and so the students will be participating in a adapted graduation ceremony at Fairview in the first week of June. Okay, does anyone have any questions about Oak Ridge for me?
Thank you for that update.
I have just a quick comment, sorry.
Who got in first?
No, go ahead, Eileen.
I have a question. John, when we first moved to create Oak Ridge, there was an enrollment data point where we were viable. Are we above that now with our enrollment so that we are totally supporting the program with our ADA?
We were, go ahead, Ken.
So Eileen, the projections we have, we need 50 ADA to really break even. So the enrollment going up is good, but the ADA is ultimately what we're funded on. So the program has been losing money as a negative change in fund balance when you look at that. However, I remind the board that our high schools or secondary schools lose money as well. So there's this idea of we want to run a program that is self-sufficient, but at the same time we're providing opportunities to kids. This may not be a program that ultimately can break even. So the goal is to get 50 ADA, Eileen, to answer your question, but there's also a secondary question of whether it's providing a valuable service to kids and really keeping kids from leaving the district altogether.
I'd like to add too, and this isn't part of the presentation, but you'll see later in the agenda that we're considering most likely moving Oak Ridge to a Life Touch property, and just that in itself will save our rent. We are negotiating. Kevin has done a masterful job in his team of negotiating a less than market value 17-month lease with a 90-day opt-out, which we didn't have before. So if we are able to move over to Life Touch, we can opt out of that lease and we'll be in good shape.
Fantastic. I'm very much in support of everything that Oak Ridge offers, and I'm glad that we at least have not a huge drain on finances, but I support the program.
I also think it's an area of need that we would be not very forward thinking if we didn't provide that service.
I want to just comment on the fact that there's three different main reasons why I believe that the enrollment has gone up and the grades started going up and people not leaving. One was our teachers got more used to the program, were able to support kids in the proper way that they know as into the second year. But by adding Rhonda Oldham and then now Shep, Rhonda she's been running Oakdale for so long pretty much. She understood what those families needed and what support and what the teachers needed to support. So she was able to get in there and tighten the ship up and how it's going to be and how to talk to families to make sure they show up. And John's now doing meetings constantly with them, so they have staff meetings to talk things through and what our next steps are. So that's been a big growth area for us in Oak Ridge, and so I wanted to make sure that people knew that they've been working extremely hard. And now, as we talked about earlier, we're training 10 more teachers in the online program just in case it grows, which we think it might next year. So just in case we have to move teachers over. There you go.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, are we ready to move on? Okay, thank you, John. And our next item of business is from Business Services, and that is going to be with Julie. And it's a discussion about Charter School Measure K project requests.
Julie, if you want to write it, we'll take this table back there.
Well, I think they're all going.
Facility Committee. And the request is for $4 million for Chico Country Day.
Excuse me just a minute. Thank you very much,
Thank
ladies.
you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate all you did tonight.
Good to see you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Julie.
That's okay. For their project, this item is connected to the next item on the agenda. Chico Country Day has already requested funding for a lot of integral steps along the way, planning and programming, architectural fees. So the dollar amounts won't match what you're going to see in the next agenda. Because they've already requested so many, and this is what they needed additionally for the project. And they have a surplus of funds over and above what they're requesting in this agenda item.
I think you might have to explain that to me, because when I was looking at
It was
the tracking
bad.
sheet.
It was bad.
See that.
I just put it there.
Okay.
No,
Let's mute
the regular meetings, that's why you don't.
Can you mute them, Erica?
I'm trying.
But are you gonna do dinner, or,
Hey Kathy, you might want to.
oh heck,
Anyway, Julie, what I was having trouble with was the tracking sheet only showing the remaining funds available.
707. You know what I think that is this is after they met and approved the 4 million. So the Measure K Charter Committee already approved the 4 million to bring to you, and then the sheet is updated, because they will have 707 after
During the 4
you
million.
approved the 4 million.
Okay, so I was
Sorry.
gonna say,
that's
wait a second.
confusing.
I'm in support of their project for sure, but.
Yeah, so,
Sure.
that's what we're asking for, this evening, is to approve the expenditure of Measure K funds, charter school funds, for $4 million.
Okay, any questions about this item with regards to approving expenditure of the $4 million for the Chico Country Day School project?
I was jealous about the outdoor, meeting area that they're gonna build. I think we should consider doing something like that. I, went by the Neil Dow School with the big, protective, tarp, but, I haven't seen us talk about doing that with an elementary school where there was both an eating area and a getting together area.
Well, at Shasta Elementary School, they have a really large covered area out in the front corner where kindergarten used to be, that I'm sure will be utilized for all types of events.
Miracle does.
Marsh, is that overhang?
Yeah, I thought at some of the projects that are going on, it did appear that there were.
Right.
Certainly.
Was it
does.
Marigold too, wasn't there?
Yeah.
A whole
Yeah.
thing that was like that? Yeah, I mean, it seemed to me like there were more and more adaptations being made to allow for those type of gatherings and things.
Yeah, certainly our objective was to provide an outdoor area for students to eat outdoors, because in a lot of cases their cafeteria dining area was too small. Or we're building, the gymnasium facility, and you don't want to have it tied up all the time with, several lunch periods during the day. That way, when it's nice weather, the kiddos can eat outside and the gym can be used for other things at the same time. So that's kind of the programming that we've had, in mind when we've done the covered areas.
Would you like a motion?
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. I know I came over to, recognize the classroom that had gotten 5th place in the water competition, and it was a rainy day, and the kids were all huddled on the sidewalks, because they didn't have an area safe from the rain unless they went inside. So I think it's just a really good idea to keep forward in our architectural discussions.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Measure K facility project for Chico Country Day School in the amount required.
I second that.
Okay, motion by Linda Hovey, second by Dr. Kaiser. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Was Eileen in there?
I was on mute, but here I am, and yes, I'm aye.
Okay, all right, that passes unanimously. We'll move on to number 2 then.
Okay, so this goes hand in hand with that item we just covered, and that was the Measure K allocation of funds for Chico Country Day. The next item is a total.
Julie, you're really going in and out sound-wise.
Okay, I'll talk louder. The next item is an overall project approval for Chico Country Day with the overall budget for the project. And we did bid this project last week. We received 3 bids. United Building Contractors was the lowest responsive bidder. It came in under our estimate, which we were very happy with, because that means that we're able to do the 4 alternates that they had, which were really important to the school. So we're happy to be able to do those for them. So the overall bid with the alternates came in at $4,012,000. We have the soft cost budget at $694,000, which includes those things like DSA, architecture, sampling, testing, fees, all of that. And then we also added a contingency budget of $200,000 for a total project budget of $4,906,439. So we're asking you to approve this total project budget this evening, and also approving entering contract with the lowest responsive bidder, United Building Contractors.
Julie, just to clarify, Chico Country Day will make up that $906,439, so we just approved $4 million. So will they be coming up with the difference for this?
You've already approved more than this amount for this project.
Okay.
So we are covered.
Okay.
So I move the bid approval for Chico Country Day.
Eileen, and I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion by Dr. Kaiser, second by Eileen Robinson. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, it's unanimous. Moving to number 3, this has to do with Phase 4 Master Plan Project Update, PV High Multipurpose Room, Career and Technical Education Project Bid and Approval.
So at the last regular board meeting, you authorized us to, a pre-authorization to enter contract on this project if it came within the budget. Since then, we did bid the project. We received 5 bids, which was really amazing turnout. And as you can see by the bid amounts, they were all very close. One outlier, but not too far out. It also came in significantly under the budget that we had estimated. So we're very pleased. We're trying to figure out why these 2 projects came in and under our estimates by such a large margin. Our third-party estimator is the same on both projects, and typically he's very, very close. I think that COVID-19 has had a lot to do with it. Contractors definitely want to be working close to home, and it's a reduction in commercial projects maybe as we've gotten their attention. I'm not quite sure why, but we're happy that it's this way and not the other way. So we're bringing this to you tonight as a ratification of the contract award to D.H. Slater and Son, which was the lowest responsive bidder for $16,600,000. $209,000. And the overall, budget approval for the project of $23,021,092.
I so move.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Dr. Kaiser, second by Linda Hovey. Any further discussion on this?
Yeah, I have a question for Julie. So Julie, we've seen references to this. I know my son is being called the essential worker, and we saw construction all the way over from the coast back to Chico. Do we think this will actually let us compress this pretty big project into a narrower time framework?
I do, at least by a month.
Nice.
Wow.
On both Pleasant
Okay.
Valley High School and Chico Country Day. That's why we asked for your prior approvals, so we could get going.
Get going. Nice. Good. Okay.
Exciting stuff. Okay, any further comments or
Are we
questions?
still in competition for potentially, I think, at one point, we thought we might end up, being able to go for additional, CTE grants? Are we still in competition for more money?
Yes, we are. As a matter of fact, we met about the 4 additional CTE grants at Pleasant Valley High School today, and we're examining the feasibility of those projects. We don't have a final word on those yet. We're waiting for the state to show, how much they're gonna fund, but our scores were very impressive. So,
All right, good.
Good deal. Okay, let us take a vote then. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, passes unanimously. Next item is a discussion action item. It's an update on the beam repairs at Chico Junior High School.
Sorry. Okay, so you're all aware of the beam repair projects that are necessary in the 5 different locations. Previously, you had approved United Building Contractors as a lease-back entity. Meeting with our folks in accounting, we have decided to start with the Chico Junior High School projects, both the library and the multi-purpose room. These are the most complex of all 5, and we plan to tackle them this summer. So United Building Contractors put together a guaranteed maximum price, which I have to make an adjustment to this evening because it did change after the writing of this agenda item. We had to add some costs for the field measuring and the template construction. They have to actually construct templates and ship them to Oregon so that they can bend the steel exactly to the template. And we had to add cost for that, and the abatement that was necessary because the ceilings in both of those rooms have asbestos in them. So that was a little bit extra, and then we are financing, and we always finance part of leaseback, it's required by law, but we are financing the library portion of it, and the finance charges will be about $13,000 over the period of a year. So the construction budget is at $726,817.40, which brings the total up to $826,817.40. And that number does include a 5% contingency of, it's about $35,000 in there, which, could be spent if we discover something that we need to spend it on, or could be unspent at the end of the project. So, tonight, we're asking you to approve this guaranteed maximum price, for this project and allow us to move forward.
Good. Okay, any questions for Julie?
I'd like to make a motion to approve, please.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Linda Hovey, second by Dr. Kaiser. Anything further to talk about?
Then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Next up, a discussion action item on bid authorization for Nord Country School's new domestic well.
So you're all aware that the well water at Nord Country School was high in nitrogen levels, and that the state and the county are requiring us to install a new well. It falls under the district's responsibility to provide water to the site because we own it. And we're going out for bid tomorrow for the well drilling. What they'll do is drill a sample well, and they'll find where the quality water is. And that will determine how deep the well will eventually have to be. And then they have to engineer the pump and the power requirements, because that's dependent on how deep it is. You know, how much suction do they have to get because of how deep it is. And it could be anywhere from 400 to 800 feet deep.
Wow.
So, we wanna get, and it is a loud thing, I don't know if you've been around well drilling, but it's loud. So it's one of those opportunities we're taking because we don't have students on campus. We wanna get started on this, and we're asking for you to approve an amount not to exceed 400,000, and that includes everything, the drilling, the pumps, the equipment, the electrical, the fencing, everything.
Were we going to get some money back from some source on this?
We have been really trying to get funding from the California Water Resource Board. When we were told we had to drill this well, we were told, don't worry, we will give you the funding. And as time has gone by, they've changed people in and out, and they say, we will, but we don't have the money on hand. But we haven't got any guarantee. So we decided to also file rehabilitation grant funding from the state school facility program. That's only 60/40, so they'll pay 60, we have to pay 40, but we're still pursuing the other grant as well. So I don't know when and where we're gonna get money from, but we're looking everywhere.
Julie, I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so, this actually came up last year, correct?
Yes.
I thought we had already moved to try to protect the well that was there and try to avoid the water issue. And so it raises the context for me. I know there's a movement to have a unified assessment of the water table and the water issues in the county. And so is it a feasible possibility that the water table there has dropped so much that that's really the issue?
I don't believe so. I think it is the agriculture activities in the area. It's not that the water is too low.
Okay,
Understood. Well,
so you're gonna go out there and tell them to quit farming?
nope.
Nope,
Nope.
we're gonna drill a deep well.
Make it deep, that's what I would say.
It's a large amount of money,
Okay,
but it
I
was
move
worth it.
authorization for the new domestic well.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we've got a motion from Dr. Kaiser, a second from Eileen Robinson. Anything further to discuss? Just thank you for continuing to search for some reimbursement on that. Yes, thank you, Julie. All righty, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you.
I would like to add, Julie, do everything you can to browbeat them into giving us more money.
Okay, you got it.
Okay, all right. Our next item of business is going to be an information item. It's with regards to the Life Touch building purchase and the due diligence information.
Okay. Erica, how would I share my screen?
John Carver, do you ever smile?
Is that what that was? Yes. Oh, there he is walking in.
Okay, I'm gonna walk through a 7-slide presentation. This is a presentation we're gonna build upon, so this isn't the complete, but this is really our first information we're sharing with the board regarding the due diligence work that we have already done and continue to do to determine whether or not purchasing the Life Touch building is gonna meet our needs ultimately. And as you know, we are currently under an agreement to purchase. Okay. So why make this? So I just want to, again, we're going to build on this as we go, but as a reminder and to our public, the intent here is to consolidate district support services. Right now, as a parent, you may have to come down to this location at the district office on 7th Street to talk to Ed Services, and then you may have to go over to the courtyard property off of Carmichael to deal with nutrition services or transportation, exactly. So having everybody in one location, we think would be better customer service for our parents and the community. We also think it would provide better collaboration between our departments and divisions. And it was mentioned earlier, the Oak Ridge program could move into that building as well, and we would not have to be paying rent in another location. We also would argue that this idea of consolidation and moving would be better use of district-owned property. And I state that based on the fact that not only this property that is right off of 8th Street, a very busy road, but also our courtyard property is right off Highway 99, and you could argue instead of parking buses, should really be within the city zoning of generating sales income related to commercial and industrial property. We also think this Life Touch building provides a unique opportunity for Chico Unified due to its location, the size of the building, the fact that it already has loading docks, and I will add a K in docks, by the way. And then the office and warehouse space mix. In other words, this building already has a portion of the building in offices, but also has a portion that is open concrete floor, which will help us and is what meets our need. And again, getting back to that, increased meeting spaces for larger trainings within our staff, collaboration, both for the educational service side, but also our support service side, maintenance and operations, and then also a boardroom space. So the board understands, we have a purchase and sale agreement. Currently, the due diligence period ends on July 6th, and the closing date is estimated to be August 5th at this point in time. Our goal would be to make a recommendation to this board at the June 24th meeting on the final go-ahead and purchase based on the due diligence work that we are completing right now. So the key questions, do we fit? And we presented a backup in your board agenda, and I need to see if I can get there. That's very helpful, Esther, thank you.
She's good.
So this is coming up now. This is an initial drawing from our architect. The architect will be here at the next meeting to present this in more detail. So the intent isn't to argue whether this is the right location for every office space. And I will also tell you what is represented here is almost all offices. We are not going to build offices for every employee. It is really, do we fit? So that's kind of the maximize, if we had to fit people, could we do it? And what you see is a congregation of our human resources. This is the entrance to the building up here. Our education services are put together in this peach color. Business services in the green, both here, and then our nutrition service piece over here next to the bakery and the warehouse. You can see a boardroom, and all the brown areas are larger meeting spaces. This is I would say, an oversized break room. We do not need this much space, but again, this is about can we fit. This space represents Oak Ridge, and it has access to the front of the building. Right in this is mechanical and a backup generator, which already exists on the property. So if power were to go down, the generator would kick on and keep our technology again up across the district up and running. Currently, our maintenance and operations supervisory staff would move into this blue area, and the green represents the warehouse. So bottom line is what we've, oh, and also what is nice is right here in the shaded area is undesignated. So not only do we believe at this point in time, working with the architect, we could fit all the staff that we would consolidate between courtyard and district office, but there's still a portion of this that's not even designated at this time. So again, I just want to
Tim's gonna take that space over, you know that, right?
Who's that, Kathy?
Tim. It'll become the data munching center.
Probably.
Kathy, I'm all for that.
Don't encourage it, Kathy.
I just want to emphasize again that this is a conceptual drawing, that if we actually purchase this building and we're going to do work to infill this building, we will engage in what we call programming conversations, where we meet with staff. Yes.
Absolutely.
And we put them in there. Julie mentioned transportation. What exactly am I missing? Yes, so the other piece to this is, one, the building that currently exists, and we're gonna talk about this, but we're also purchasing the land to the west. And the goal is ultimately to put our transportation department into that space, but we are not gonna do that until we leverage the current courtyard property or this. When we say leverage, a long-term lease, land lease would be ideal, or a great sale. So those are the two ideas, but we're not going to develop that property, which also speaks to, we have not gone through a CEQA process, because we don't have immediate intent to develop that property until we leverage our current courtyard property or this property. When the time comes to do that, we would have to go through a CEQA process, and we would follow all the laws, regulations, public hearings required to do that work. Okay, so I'm gonna go back if I can.
Just close it out.
Thank you. So we'll bring the architect back next time. We'll walk through a little more detail about the thought process of the layout and some of the constraints of the building itself and why that layout is what we're looking at this point in time. But again, programming will occur with those people and public that are gonna be in that space to make sure we get the right design. Okay, the 100-year floodplain challenge, because we know that portions of this property reside in a federally designated 100-year floodplain. So we did incorporate, hire, who was our surveyor?
Rolls Anderson Rolls, completed a full topographic survey of both parcels.
Okay.
And they ended up with poison oak. Just so you know.
Charge extra for that.
Poison oak.
Oh, poison oak.
By the creek.
It's a good barrier there. We're gonna try this one more time.
There we go. Does your scale go away, or if you go over your scale? Let's go.
What do I need to do on this one?
So stop screen share.
Okay, stop sharing.
Now give it time to load real quick. So go back to your Chrome.
For those of you watching, I'm sorry, I am having difficulty. try this one more time.
Well, while we're waiting, I just want to let Dr. Kaiser know I do smile once in a while.
What if you hit this?
I thought this wait was evidence that I was right, that Tim will take over that gray space. And we'll never have a tech problem.
Well, I'll talk to
Kevin,
you.
I was able to get the floodplain map up on my, my agenda on my other computer, so I can see it.
Okay, let me just walk you through that piece then, and then, again, we'll be bringing this back and see what we can do to make sure it comes up. The bottom line is that there is a line that runs through this property. It does not incorporate the entire property. It actually runs through a portion of the current building, and then actually carves off a portion that is north, that is not included in the floodplain. Which the reality is that is on Fair Street, where we would intend at some point in time, if we were gonna put a building, that's the location we would most likely do it. We would do it more towards the road for a couple reasons. One, that provides us some security, and using a building as kind of a security buffer. But also it keeps the buildings away from the creek and away from any neighbors in the Paseo Campaneros Road, which we'll talk a little bit more about. We also think that we were encouraged by, when we received the survey, was that even the area that was in the 100-year floodplain was above grade for the most part. There was just some very small, and you'll see them in red, notations of the grade being below the 100-year floodplain, which would require, if we were to develop that space, some mitigation on our part. We'd have to raise up those areas and then deal with any water runoff, for example. But we believe, again.
There you go. So, when you look at this though, okay, so I'm just, where'd it go?
We're bringing it back.
So what you're referring to, Kevin, okay, so I'm assuming the building is right there, the existing building.
This is the existing building here.
And the line you're talking about is
This-
the one that cuts,
Yeah.
kind of right across through the middle of that.
Correct.
So those numbers that are down below there, those are indicating that those are.
Everything in blue would represent it's above grade, above the 100-year floodplain line. Anything in red is below. And if we were, let's say, to put in and develop at some point in time an area for our shop to do maintenance on buses into this space, but we were gonna park buses in here, we would have to deal with any mitigation in that regard. But you can see, because so much of it is above the plane, we think this could be accomplished and would be, again, requirement to go through all the CEQA, and again, from a development standpoint, this is later in time. But most of this.
So would the creek have to go above the blue area in order to get into the orange area? I mean, if it's
It actually
already
comes
above?
from the east side. If you went to the east, it's all red.
Over here.
Over there, yeah. So it kinda goes.
Gotcha.
Where the road is.
Here's the road up here. This is Fair Street. Yeah, the highway is over here. And this is really the creek over in this space here.
So the flooding area isn't next to the creek, right?
It's still low by the creek, it's just not in the floodplain, but it's still low. But this area does not traditionally flood, you don't see flooding there. It's unlikely that it will flood.
Except it did. It did about like less than 10 years ago.
This area or Paseo Campaneros?
Yes. Well, Paseo Campaneros, but it was Comanche Creek that flooded. And all those houses were severely damaged.
Are they lower? Are they lower than this side of the creek?
I don't know.
No, we just surveyed this property. Yeah.
But that's why I brought this up, is because I knew from personal experience what had happened with that. And I would not want us to get ourselves in a position where our building could be.
Well, they won't allow us to. So we must build above that grade. And
So you mean the new building that we're considering to the west? But what about this building that is partially in all that red zone?
it is at a grade that if we had that 100 or 200 year water intrusion, it would come up to the building.
I wonder why they let them build a building there in the first place.
Well, the designation of the 100-year floodplain changed.
Right.
The rules by which they existed when they built that building are different today than they were 10, 15 years ago.
Elevations didn't change.
Just the rules changed.
But the rules changed.
Huh. So.
But isn't it also true, Julie, that with this higher elevation that is literally between the creek and the building, that it would be extremely unlikely that it would go over the higher elevation to get to the lower one?
True, and the other important information is the finished floor of the building is not on the ground surface of the existing building. It has a raised foundation, so it is not at the surface level.
Right.
So when you say the rules changed, so go into
The feds changed the designation after Katrina.
In fact, it puts more than half of our school sites in floodplain now.
Oh.
Yeah. Which maybe happened 8 years ago, maybe?
Oh, wow. Interesting. Okay, never knew that.
The feds were so liable with Katrina that they started backing way back up about what they would call a 100-year flood zone.
Okay, so what you're saying is where this, to the left in this picture, which is to the west, that piece of land, you would go as close as possible to the street, so you would avoid being in that altogether.
I would say for any building, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if we're gonna park buses and those types of things, we're probably gonna be in these spaces to some extent. But we can mitigate that in many different ways, through gravel versus an actual hard surface, through any retention ponds, those types of things as well. So, but again, we would not, again, a future kind of building necessarily, here, we think it makes more sense to have it more close to the Fair Street, which again is outside that line. So I think for my standpoint, I'll just speak for me personally, I was encouraged, one, to see where the line was, which would be consistent to where we'd want to be anyway. Plus, if you go into those other spaces, there's a lot of the ground that is in fact above that line anyway. So in my view, we could be able to deal with the mitigation if we were to develop that sometime.
So this picture, if you were to see it 20 years ago, where would the line be?
We could research and find out where that
But
is.
you would assume it'd be lower, right?
Yeah, I'm not even sure any of this was in the federal 100-year floodplain.
I mean, I'd be kind of curious. But I mean, it's really irrelevant, but it seems kind of, yeah. Okay, well, that explains a lot.
Okay, I'm sorry it took a little time to get that, but thank you, Erica. I'm gonna try and get out of this now. Okay, stop sharing. Okay, forgive me for those that are out in the public. Okay. Go back to you. Should I kill this first?
Go ahead and load it before you share. Now hit Zoom, hit share screen. Now select the presentation on the far left lower, and share on the far right lower.
Well, thank you for those who are out there bearing with me as I learn this. But the other third major question was the environmental review, because the Life Touch building was involved in photography, and there were chemicals used in that process. So I included the detail in your packet. I'm not going to go through all of that. I'm just going to give the general perspective from our point is that we do not have a chemical issue or any environmental issue on the property for this report.
Now, that also included that property to the west?
Correct.
Okay. And because I know one of the issues they brought up a couple of times in there was not only the use by Life Touch, but prior agricultural uses and the chemicals that they might have, put in there. And then also brought up that as far as Life Touch, it was under the asphalt, a lot of stuff, so that they didn't think that was gonna be an issue because that was already under the asphalt, but they still didn't know about some of the other stuff, so. I mean, I just wonder what the chances are we'll end up in a situation like we were over at near Shasta School on that property. Didn't we have to do soil remediation over there?
Well, that's a good point. But
Well,
this
I
is
read
the
that
school site.
report, all 600 pages, and there was no discernible contamination. It goes back to well, no, it goes back to 1960s, and it may even go back to 1940s. So the land's been empty for quite a while.
Okay, Julie, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
So, this is a commercial site,
Yeah.
this is not a school site.
Right.
In a school site, if you found a historical use of the property that deemed, there could be, contaminated soil or PCBs or anything like that, we would have to sample and get the sample results, and then that would determine what we do
Yeah.
with the data. But this is not under that kind of scrutiny. There's no students.
And they wouldn't, because you're dividing the usages off, that the academy is going to be housed in the existing building, you don't have to worry about that.
Correct.
Okay, okay, thank you, that's an important piece of information.
Yes, exactly. So I'm gonna get out of this, stop the share again. Erica, how do I go back?
So just as a reminder, to our public that's listening, we are accepting questions and we do have some questions on this item. Our process is to go through the presentation, then we will take questions from the board, and then the board will take questions from the public, and we will be addressing those that we have received via email.
I have no additional questions.
Neither do I.
I think if you go to Life Touch one and then you close it, you go back to the open.
Okay. I do want to walk through this just very quickly, because in this Kelly mission, we had a comment from a neighbor in here, and I want to be able to read that and put that on record as well. But our due diligence checklist, you can see there's over 20 items on the checklist we provided you. We're working through all of those details. At our next meeting, as I mentioned, we'll have the architect. We'll also go over a detailed financing plan as we start getting closer to this, and you'll just see in just a moment kind of a general that I want to start giving you a sense of what we're thinking. And then we do need to get a cost. If we do purchase the building, what's it gonna cost us to build it out so that it actually serves our needs? And then it's important, we've been talking about this for a while, but we want to have some data to share. We do need to meet with the neighbors of the Paseo de Campaneros neighborhood. They have property that is on the other side of the creek, but we want to talk about if we bought this building, what that would look like and what our operations look like, answer their questions. And we've also done some noise testing, for instance, so we want to share that with them as it relates to our current operations.
Good.
Okay, I'm gonna go through this quickly, we'll bring this back to you, but from a financing standpoint, the goal here is that we don't wanna add to our operations, because really what we wanna do is sell or leverage our current administrative properties and pay for this completely. So that's the goal, but I can't tell you what the market looks like and what the timeline is to ultimately get that accomplished. So I wanna make sure what's the impact of our operating budget if we enter into this. And a couple things is, one, we're looking at MA money, that's the Medicare Administrative Activities, unrestricted money we've collected over quite a few years that we've had in reserves. It's $1.2 million. We would probably recommend we set that aside and we start paying our CEC loan, 0% loan, out of those dollars. And we still have 6.5 years in which to do that. We currently, which the total liability is $1.6 million that's left. But that gets us a number of years at this point in time to sell the property and then pay it off outright. That would reduce our operating budget by almost $250,000. We talked about the Oak Ridge program. If we move in, we would save $78,000 a year in rent. And then we paid off the certificate of participation for the Little Chico Creek Solar, almost $50,000 a year there. So right now, what we're looking at is a cost of the building of $4.8 million with $2 million of infrastructure. We don't know if that's the right number, but just running the debt load on that, the annual cost to service that debt would be a little over $400,000 a year. So really what we're saying is that we're gonna eliminate almost $370,000 of operating budget in these other areas, and we would add this in. So the increased operating cost of the district would be about $30,000 to $50,000. And again, that's not the goal to do that over time, it's to pay this off entirely. But if it took us 3 to 5 years to do that, we could handle that within our operating budget, I would say, for $30,000 or $50,000. We'll talk more about that and bring you back more detail on that as well. So here's a couple additional items. I guess I already covered that. I jumped over that other one, so I'm sorry. So that already covered that. So with the board's permission, I'd like to at least read a comment that we received.
Please do.
Concern or question. It comes from a Kristen Johnson. She writes, to whom it may concern, this communication is to express concern over the purchase and use of a Life Touch building property. I own property that is right across the creek from the recently purchased property and would like to understand the intended use of the current field for CUSD operations. Multiple people on both Fair Street and Paseo Compañeros are concerned about environmental issues, and she lists 8 of them. 1 is potential groundwater contamination, as all residents rely on well water. 2 is increased traffic along Fair Street. 3 is increased emissions and decreased air quality. 4, contaminated runoff into waterways, drainage ditch, Main Creek. 5, maintenance on buses and large vehicles directly on waterways. 6, loss of wildlife habitat. 7, old growth trees eliminated. And 8, vegetation eliminated, which helps with sound barrier and habitat shelters. She goes on to say, would CUSD consider selling the portion of the field west of the drainage ditch to any of the surrounding homeowners, or will all, capitalize, of the field be used by CUSD? She says, I would appreciate this matter and my questions addressed in the online meeting slated for tonight, Wednesday, May 6, 2020 at 5 p.m. Thank you in advance, Kristen Johnson, with a CC to Karen Williams. So we also have a follow-up from Karen Williams, so I'll read that as well.
You know, I think that is all, that all of this, oh, in addition,
This is the second from Karen Williams. So the first was from Kristen
yeah,
Johnson.
but it says exactly the same thing as the other one.
It does. It only lists 3 concerns environmentally versus all 8 originally.
Was one other question as well submitted during tonight's meeting?
Yes, there was. Thank you. I believe that also came from Ms. Johnson.
I believe I responded to that one. Is that the one, are we going to address this?
Can you tell me why they are wanting to change locations to begin
Okay,
with?
and Kevin addressed that in his presentation.
Right, I think we did the first part of that. So I think specifically to these concerns, we do have an intent to meet with the neighbors, and it sounds like these are neighbors in that area. We can share this presentation as we develop that, and happy to share the information we've had. I do think it's important to note that we don't have immediate plans to develop yet, as we stated before, because we're just going to be moving into that building, and we've basically are not doing any environmental to do that because it's the same service. What Life Touch was doing there is very similar to the work we're doing.
We actually have less employees.
We have less employees, probably less impact. My understanding is that Life Touch at one point was running 2 shifts and was running almost 24 hours. That's not our operation.
Right, and you know, I would think that my understanding too, the location is, I mean, you're at this building is at the beginning, and these people are down further, right?
I think there's two, I say, the sale company which is behind, on the other side of the street, but there's also, neighbors further down off of Fair Street.
Right, but you know, if people were coming to this site, they wouldn't be going down that way, right?
I think if we were to develop, and at some point if we develop, we're gonna have to do those traffic studies to determine what kind of a load that might look like.
Yeah.
It's hard to say now, I don't think that would be the main entry point, but at the same time, if we have buses in that space, we've talked about using off-site fueling station. So you can see those buses going down Fair Street, so we need to be honest that that's also an area that we look to utilize. The only thing I'm sorry, last thing I would add, I apologize.
Sure.
The concern over the waterway, we also want to keep as many trees there as possible and the vegetation. We agree that it is a sound barrier. And frankly, what we've seen in the maps from the survey, along with what our future development more towards the Fair Street, we want to keep as much of that as natural, I think, on the backside as possible. And there's a lot of room for us to grow, we think, even within this.
Erosion, which would be a problem for us
Correct.
too.
Yeah, we would want that barrier, I would say. So I'm sorry to take your time.
No, this is great information. I think everybody's been wanting to hear how things stand. So anyhow, people who are, Eileen and Kathy, did you have anything else you wanted to ask of Kevin? No?
Oh, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that we're in the preliminary stages. I encourage the neighbors to continue to communicate, and I know that Kevin and others are going to reach out to them because it's important to us to make sure that we are compatible neighbors. And I just, open communication is how that works out, is to everybody be, saying how they feel and what they need, and I like the idea, as Kevin mentioned, of not disturbing the natural habitat with tree removal or anything like that, which has always been our desire, no matter what we've done in the district. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be a really good thing for the district to consolidate services there in that building. And I thank you for the work you've done, Kevin, in getting the due diligence part taken care of so we can move toward the final purchase of the property.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Our next item has to do with human resources and a resolution being proposed regarding appreciations for teachers and certificated staff. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
All right, so this is the week that has been designated as teacher and certificated staff appreciation by the state of California. I brought forward resolution 150820. Just to give a little background, we normally express our appreciation of our certificated staff at the school sites through our PTAs. Obviously, that's not possible this year, so I did ask for staff to give us input on what's going on out there as far as showing our appreciation. And I got a lot of feedback from principals on nearly every school site. They're sending out, delivering in person, cards, flowers, gift cards, customized t-shirts, coffee, pens, tumblers, treats, plants, and even ice cream. So they're putting like small baskets to our staff and hand delivering it to our PTA. We have a number of schools that are putting words of appreciation on their marquees out front, and then also some have videos that were created, and I think we've shared them with the board also. Kids saying thank you, we appreciate you, we miss you, those types of things. So.
And Fairview today did a drive-through barbecue for their staff.
And McManus is planning the same, kind of a rotating tailgate to keep social distance. PTAs
They're getting creative.
So they're being very creative and showing appreciation. So we also had Golden Apple Financial Services that is had a long-term relationship doing a raffle for Teachers Appreciation. They're going to gift cards to restaurants that when they open up eventually, or they can do takeout food. They're doing raffles, 5 per day, so a total of 20 teachers will be drawn randomly and to express appreciation and thanks on behalf of them. So we have a lot of stuff going on. It's not in the normal way, but still I think it's meaningful for our staff.
All right, so I'd like to just go ahead and read the resolution. So this is the Chico Unified School District Board of Education resolution for teacher and certificated staff appreciation. Whereas a strong, effective system of free public school education for all children and youth is essential to our democratic system of government. And whereas the United States has made considerable progress in the social, technological, and scientific fields due to our system of free and universal public education, and whereas much of this program can be attributed to the qualified and dedicated teachers and certificated staff entrusted with the educational development of our children to their full potential, and whereas teachers and certificated staff should be accorded high public esteem, reflecting the value the community places on public education, and whereas the Chico Unified School District is keenly aware of the importance and impact of teachers and all certificated staff on children, and whereas it is appropriate that teachers and certificated staff be recognized for this dedication and commitment to educating students. Therefore, be it resolved that May 4th through the 8th, 2020 be proclaimed Teacher and Certificated Staff Appreciation Week in the Chico Unified School District, and urge all citizens to pay tribute to our public school teachers and staff. Furthermore, the teachers and staff in the Chico Unified School District should be thanked every day for their dedication, professionalism, and for the services they provide to our students. So, we're going to vote on whether to pass this. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve.
I'll second that motion. Beat you to it, Kathy.
Motion by Linda Hovey, second, I don't know, I guess it's a toss-up, but I'll give it to Eileen Robinson.
Thank you.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
A resounding aye. So that was passed and adopted, and we do appreciate teachers and all the wonderful work they do in this district.
And I will communicate back to our certificated staff tomorrow. We'll be bringing a similar resolution to you next board meeting for classified staff, because classified week is coming up.
All right, thank
Jim,
you,
Jim, is there somebody at the schools tomorrow, like, in the office, like 8 to noon
8:30
or
to
something like
12:30
that?
every day, Monday through Friday.
I can see Kathy hatching a plan.
I see cookies.
I can see the wheels turning, Kathy. Okay, our next item of business is, has to do with the 2022 to 23 student calendar.
Okay, so as you know, we try to bring you we do bring these to you every year for 3 years out. So we have a calendar planned, and parents can always look online and see what's happening 3 years out as far as start and end times of school, holidays, those types of things. So give you a little history background. Traditionally, for a long period of time, we've had the last day of school on Thursdays. The reason for that dates way back to when Chico High was having graduation at the university, and we couldn't have it. We had to have some turnaround time because they often conflicted, and the university couldn't have us set up on a Friday and then have their graduation on the very next morning. So we had to have a day in between. Well, we no longer have that because we have stadiums for both high schools and they're doing their own thing. So some of the concerns that we've heard over the years is from parents and families that it's very difficult to get people, relatives in on a Thursday, then they got to take a Friday off also in order for them to do, because of work and those types of things. So there has been some requests that we've heard over this time, is there any way to move that to Friday? So I've given you two options to look over. These are very typical calendars, there's no major changes. As you can see in option A, if we were to end on a Friday, it would be June 2nd, and we would start on, I'm sorry, let me make sure I'm looking at it. We would start on the 15th, yes. If we go to option B and we end on Thursday, which has been something we've done for long term, which is the 1st of June, we would start on the 12th of August.
Start on Friday.
Which is a Friday, yeah.
That's not so
Just
good.
the way it all falls and everything. Spring break is in both of these, March 13th through 17th. On this particular year, St. Patrick's Day lands on the 17th, which is a Friday. So I made the assumption on that Butte College and Chico State are going to have their spring break during that time. They don't have calendars published at this point. We have had one year in the past where we've had to change that spring break depending on what Chico State and Butte College has done, but I don't expect that to be the case this year because it lands on a Friday just by happenstance. So, and everything else is pretty much very traditional from other calendars that you have approved. Now, this is a discussion action item, but it can be only a discussion if you choose. If you have other options, other ideas, and you want me to bring that back, I just added action on here if you were okay with this. If you want a public input, we have a lot of flexibility.
I would like to make a comment.
Yes.
Okay, so,
Ian after Kathy.
so the context of this is, after reading the very emotional commentaries by both the college graduates and the high school graduates, I think the biggest pain for them this year has been not being able to have their family members there to witness their graduation. So I would like to endorse the ending on June 2nd so that we could facilitate as many family members living outside the area to come and be there for graduation as possible.
Okay, Eileen?
Well, I'm going to support that part of Kathy's statement. Lodging, of course, is always an issue, but it seems as though there is some additional hotel, motel construction planned. The one that I'd like to comment on is the beginning date. I know that elementary has supported having a couple of days and then the weekend break before the kids come back for, a whole entire week of school for the little guys that haven't been used to getting into the pattern of school. However, just having a one-day Friday, I think, is not productive, and you would find more absences on that Friday than the possible negative impact of starting on a Monday. So I support the start on Monday, the 15th of August, and ending school June 2nd with graduation on Friday.
Okay, does somebody want to make a motion on that?
I'll move to approve that calendar unless the board feels we need any additional community input.
Okay, Linda, how do you feel?
I'm still trying to go side by side here. I don't wanna start school on Friday.
The sound is going out again.
Okay, thank you. Switch
Yeah,
back and
I
forth.
was
think
doing
that's
that,
the
and
only difference.
there's no difference really except for the start and the
Right,
end dates.
yeah, everything else is the same.
Same. Yeah, I was doing that myself, and it's like, oh, well, they just told you right there. Yeah, I too support option A, so if somebody wanted to make a motion.
My motion, option A.
And I'll second option A.
Okay, we have a motion with Dr. Kaiser, a second by Eileen Robinson. Any further consideration, Linda?
No, unless we want to take some community input. Because this is there a giant hurry on this since it's 2022 to 2023?
No, and that's why I said it's really a discussion or discussion action.
Correct.
I can come back, in 2 weeks and do that's.
I think it would be kind of a good idea, why don't we try it out? I mean, I don't see why it would, let's try it. If people don't like it, then they can tell us,
They'll let us know.
they can let us know.
And
But
we
I mean,
could revise it.
but I mean, we're doing the whole thing to respond to, input from parents to begin with, so sure, there's going to be some who, probably
And as a
go either
prior
way.
high school principal, I always heard, how come we can't have this on Friday when Aunt and Uncle can be there? I mean, I heard that
Right.
time and again, year
Right.
after year, and we had to explain to the university, but there was a time when you changed the start time and you pushed it back a week because there was the save our summer, I don't know if you remember that.
Right, I do.
And so we had no conflict with the university at that point, but we still stayed with Thursday.
Yeah.
So
Makes sense.
even with that change, I still heard why couldn't we
Right.
move this to a Friday and get more family members?
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Very good.
Makes sense to me. Okay, well, if there's nothing further, then we will take a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that passes unanimously.
Shanae?
Option A.
We're making change.
Okay, now, we are talking about, the adoption of an updated certificated management salary schedule.
So I included those attachments, everybody have those
Yes.
available. And I copied it in colors, so the red are the changes. And I talked to you a little bit about this before, so I'll walk you through it very quickly. The first two ones are assistant principal and principal of summer school or extended school year. The only change there is it's listed under daily rate rather than an annual salary. By definition, summer school isn't an annual salary anyway, we go to daily rate, and it's often confusing to the people that actually work it, which are typically teachers that would aspire to be an administrator, and this is their way to get some experience. So we typically don't have our current administrators, they don't often want to work summer or can't because of their current schedule. So we often have teachers do that have their administrative credential, would like some experience. So this gives them a specific daily rate, so that's changed there. The second change is our addition to as occupational therapists, because we've absorbed that from the county starting next year. The other one is the coordinator 2 position. We had the coordinator 1 and coordinator 3, they were named other things, I just put the numbers on it to denote the difference. But it's basically the coordinator 2 position is in between the two, but it's the same daily rate. It's just a different number of days. 205 which are needed for special education. And
So
then-
Jim, the coordinator, all 3 coordinator positions are the same daily rate, it's just the number of days they work that is different. Okay.
Right, we have one person, Liz Metzger, who's in coordinator 1. We have nobody in coordinator 3. We just didn't remove it because there might be a position that comes out in the future. It's easier to do that than come back to the board at a later date. We just left that, decided to leave it.
Jim, where was the occupational therapist?
Oh, I'm sorry, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line down.
Psychologist, okay.
My question is, can I blackball individuals?
See that?
Is it like a psychologist?
If they aren't nice to me or something,
They're at the same pay rate?
Is it under psychologist, is that what it
It's
is?
right above psychologist.
It says preschool director.
Do I have the old one? Hold on.
That's the old one.
That's
So,
what I have then.
this says proposed Kuma salary schedule.
Proposed July 1, 2020.
They copied the wrong one.
What do you see? Do we have the attachment?
You can target Jim, Kathy.
Okay, what week are we in of this crisis?
7.
And has the ship sunk?
No ship is sunk.
No ship has sunk. I absolutely move this.
I'll second it.
I think I would like to wait and have the correct version that shows the proper,
Do you have a hand,
I have one copy, but I,
uh,
yeah, that doesn't, and I haven't made it
yeah,
public.
but it's not the public.
Official service.
Okay, I mean, are we, what sort of time,
I can bring it back in 2 weeks.
That would be
is
great.
it gonna affect anything time-wise or
No.
anything?
No,
Okay.
It just needs to be in place before July 1 of next
Okay.
year.
Okay, so we have another opportunity, we will look at, the revised version, and, we'll be able to make sure
I
everybody
apologize.
has the correct
Correct and the wrong
information.
attachment.
Yep,
Let's
that's
not
all.
attach the wrong
No
one.
worries.
Yeah,
I
and,
can-
yeah,
And the last one basically is the director's salary, and we wanted to have a difference between the. high school-
Liz, if I might interrupt, I'm gonna withdraw my second so that you don't have a dangling motion out there.
okay. And is it Kathy who needs to read?
So the issue is that you don't think the data he gave us was clear or it wasn't complete?
It's not complete because the attachment was not the real attachment that should have gone.
Oh, okay.
It's
Okay, I
missing-
withdraw my motion
Yeah,
then as
it's
well.
missing some information, so Jim is willing to bring it back and it's not gonna affect anything as far as the time-wise or, so
I-
he'll just bring it back.
I left out
Can we-
occupational.
Can we
therapy.
sanction Jim?
Yes.
He
I left
doesn't
out-
get a cookie.
I left out occupational therapist, Kathy, so I will bring back the updated one.
Definitely. Good. Thank you.
Okay.
Bring it back.
All right, I'll table that.
Okay, so we'll table that one, and then our next one is, just the informational first reading of board policies.
Boatload of them, isn't it?
And there's a whole bunch of them here. Now, should I read just the names of these so people in the audience know what they are? Just maybe?
They should be able to access the agenda, so they should be able to.
Okay, so they can access it. Okay.
Right.
Okay, so we won't go to that trouble, but what the process is, since it's just the first reading, we don't usually discuss this or take any action on the first reading. The board, takes these, reads them, and then, by Thursday, May 14th, we get our comments, or we bring to each other's attention through Erica, that we have some concerns or would like some modifications of any of these. And then we look, at those particular policies, at our next meeting. And then we discuss those and pass on through the ones that we feel are fine. So if everybody could please read these, and by Thursday, May 14th, I believe, get them to Erica so that she can let us know what your thoughts are about these. And then we can speed through them at the next meeting.
It was certainly obvious that a lot of these changes were driven because of the necessity of going to online education and a couple of other impacts, so there's a lot to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, there's quite a bit, and they aren't insignificant, they're pretty important stuff. So, anyhow, is that okay, Erica, with you, time-wise? I think that's the Thursday before you have to get out the, agenda. Okay, so that is our last item, I believe, and so unless anybody has anything further, we will adjourn this meeting.